sport news and videos on the web. Available on PC, tablet and mobile. It's all at grid1.tv.
Dikkat et oğlum.
Pass auf. Pass op, pass op, pass op.
Attention, Spatimo.
Nee.
No! Kom, kalm.
Kalm.
Jetzt die Chance auf der anderen Seite.
Geht schon, du Mann!
Goal!
Follow the score of your favorite team live and find the latest results and features with Eurosport's live score.
Get Eurosport.com for your iPhone free. Every day sees full and expert coverage of sports news with dozens of articles and an easy one-stop video section that lets you live and relive the very best moments of sport. Follow all the scores, fixtures and tables live. Eurosport.com, the reference and sport apps available on the App Store.
Welcome back. This is the scene at the finish line in Matera of Stage 5 of Giro d'Italia 2013, and it's absolutely torrential rain at the finish line here, and the organisers and everyone involved in TV, etc., are running around like mad, desperately trying to grab equipment from running away in these floods that are just racing down the finish line straight, and it's well, this is a difficult moment for the organisers, some decisions to be made. The expectation is, though, that this shower will have cleared by the time the riders make it. At the moment, out on the route, they're not experiencing anything like that. We're going to have a look at highlights of yesterday's stage very shortly. But this is certainly a difficult moment for the organisers and everyone involved. Okay. Let's turn over and watch some of highlights of yesterday's stage.
Not talk British, please. Not talk. Not talk British. Not talk. Thank you again.
Okay, as I say, we're going to have a look at the closing stages of Stage 4 yesterday. Great moment for Enrico Battaglin and the Bardiani squad. The finish line is blowing away, so they've got an awful lot of work to do to try and well, that's the cover over the finish line. They've got electronic strips underneath there that they'll have to try and tend to. This was the scene as the riders left on Saturday. First stage went to Mark Cavendish. He took the first Maglia Rosa of the race. Contrast in weather conditions, as you can see, but Mark Cavendish getting his Giro d'Italia off to a great start. A little bit of difficulty in getting his sprint train organised, but nonetheless his incredible pace was to count in his favour towards the end, and lots of crashes and punctures throughout that first stage. Relatively short stage, just about 120 odd kilometres. And plenty of attacks, hot and heavy, as you might imagine, in the early stages. Visconti taking some very important points that will count in his favour. And crashes early on, but costing riders dear, not least of which was Laurent Pichon of the Française de Jeu team. And riders getting tangled up. A couple of Vinny Fantini riders, Lotto-Belisol, they're grabbing bikes all over the place to try and get back in there. And close to the, well, it was a circuit race, of course. It was almost like a criterium or a kermesse. There were 4 laps of a 16-kilometre circuit, which included 2 classified climbs, and then they went on to a 8 times 8-kilometre circuit. Rider Hejadal, the reigning champion, wearing the Maglia Rosa as reigning champion in the first stage, demonstrating or remonstrating with a couple of riders over their bike handling abilities, as groups attempt to forge clear, and an indication of just how bumpy the descent was. The group was compact, though, heading towards the closing stages, with riders from Euskaltel going back for for a wheel. Bradley Wiggins in the centre there. That was the scene and stage one. A massive contrast in weather conditions, and the rain is just getting worse and worse at the finish line here in Matera. And you wonder whether there's going to be any significant lasting damage that the organisers are going to struggle to get fixed in time. Peloton, though, are racing without any weather problems at the moment. Blissfully unaware, I should think, are most of the riders, although their team directors will certainly be very well aware. They'll have the TV images in their cars, and the peloton are promenading along behind the 6 riders out front. Thomas Gill of the Androni team, Stefano Pirazzi of Bardiani, who's the best placed overall, 47th at 3 minutes and 6 seconds. Alan Marangoni of the Cannondale team is in there. So too Riccardo Mestre of Euskaltel. They get involved in the breakaway once more. So too do Lotto-Belisol in the form of Brian Bulgak, who was also pretty active on day one, if memory serves. Rafael Andriato of Vinny Fantini is in there too. So Vinny Fantini, Bardiani and Androni, no surprise to see them very active. Euskaltel and Lotto also getting some TV time. And Alan Marangoni of the Cannondale squad is getting in there for another Italian team. Scenery as ever absolutely epic in this part of Italy as the riders work their way north. And here's the scene in the bunch as Luca Paolini of the Katusha team is marshalled by his teammates. He's got 3 for company. Mark Cavendish too, also working his way towards the front and staying out of trouble. Garmin squad looking after Ryder Hagetdal. Stage 5 of Giro d'Italia 2013, a 203-kilometre thrash for the riders from Cosenza to Matera. 6 riders, it's 5 riders now up front. We've lost one. Thomas Gill Martinez of the Androni squad, Riccardo Mestre of Euskaltel, Andriato of Vinny Fantini, Marangoni of Cannondale, and Brian Bulgak of Lotto-Belisol. It looks as if Stefano Pirazzi has gone back, and to be honest, I'm not that surprised because he was best placed of all of the riders at in 47th place, just 3 minutes and 6 seconds down. So it could well be that his presence wasn't all that popular in there. And of course there was a mountain classification 4th category hill early on in the stage of Cipolletto, and he was the first man to the top of that. So maybe he was just happy to take the 3 points there.
Well, in the early part of the race, in the first 4 or 5 days, when riders are not that far off, it's difficult to get a break of 6 riders without somebody who is up in the general classification, and you know, it's always a problem for the breakaway guys. So you know, when they start looking at who's up there, and Pirazzi was the one who was, you know, too close for comfort, just over 3 minutes, 3:06, and they weren't going to be allowed to have, you know, a nice advantage at all. Where now they have a 6:20 advantage, and it gets interesting then, and it gives them a bit of heart to push on and keep on working. But when you have a Pirazzi there, I don't think they would be allowed to take that. So again, the discussion started probably. You know, they said to him, well, if you're not going to go back to the bunch, well, we're not going to continue here, there's no point. And he got, I suppose, what he maybe set out to do in the stage, to get the mountain classification points in the earlier part, and the other 5 are just going to continue on now and keep working. As we can see here, still 92.6 kilometres to finish. It's a long road to the finish.
Yeah, and completely different weather conditions at the finish in Matera, and plenty of speculation on Twitter. The handle is @DQ Sport if you've got some questions, and lots of people want to know, well, what would happen if conditions are the same at the finish line? Is there, at the moment, you couldn't conceive of actually running a stage down there into the finish there. Sean, what would you do?
Well, I think they would finish, but it's going to be the problem for our TV pictures. That's where the problem will arise. The riders will be made continue on, because it's not really a problem for the riders. We did see yesterday in the very final, it was very wet as well. And when you look at races this year, Milan-San Remo, for example, the conditions were unbelievable cold, wet conditions all day in a long classic, and you know, they just stopped the riders for a while, put them in the buses and got them out again after I think 40-50 kilometres further on the route. So I don't think there'll be any problem from safety point of view. Yes, if there's a real bad storm or something like that, well then the organisers might take the decision to cancel the stage, but I don't think it will be here. Hopefully, fingers crossed. The way it's raining at the moment, the downpour, I think it will blow off pretty quickly, and hopefully we will not have problems with technical problems for our TV pictures.
Yeah, fingers crossed we actually get to see it. The riders are made of sterner stuff. They're going to stay out there, and Sean wouldn't countenance the idea of cancelling a stage just because of a little bit of rain. It's not even cold.
It's not tennis here.
Orica-GreenEdge, they have plenty of responsibility today to try and get their man Matthew Harley-Goss up towards the front at the conclusion of this stage. There's been a lot of talk about whether the sprinters are going to get over this last hill or not. As I said, it's a 10%, a couple of kilometres at 10%, Monte Scaglioso, and it comes about 10 kilometres from the finish. They go down a descent, then they've got another ramp up to the finish, Sean. Having said that, they've run a similar finish, very similar roads in 2003, and the sprinters did manage to make it in on that occasion.
Yes, and you know, it all depends on the race as well, what way they race in the final. The position with the breakaway out front, for example, if the breakaway is still out front, well then if they're going on for the stage victory, well the peloton will not be as active, but if they're pulling it back and it looks like they could close it down, well then it will get very active. And the weather conditions also have a bearing, because if you have nice conditions like we have here at the moment, it will not get too nervous. But when you get the wet conditions, and you could see that yesterday as we got close to the finish with the wet roads, everybody was getting really nervous. And if we have the conditions like we have at the finish at the moment here, it's going to be a really nervous time for everybody. So it depends on the way they race first of all, but the sprinters should be able to get to the finish, because the climb, it's a steep enough one, but it's a very short one, so the sprinters will be able to get to the climb on the front, and I think they should be able to get over it in the main bunch, and then the one to the finish, should not be a problem. They'll be able to get up that to the final sprint to the line.
Thomas Aurelio Gil Martinez, to give him his full title, now 35 years of age. One of two Venezuela-born riders that are in the Androni Giocattoli Venezuela squad. He's in his second season with them, so second season in Europe. He won the overall GC of the Vuelta Independencia Nacional in 2011, so clearly very accomplished in South America. But the question is, what has he got for Giro d'Italia? Meanwhile, moving to the front of the group is Rafael Andreato. Vini Fantini represented on this occasion. Disappointment for Danilo De Luca yesterday, but a great effort, you'd have to say. And he certainly animated the stage, a colourful and somewhat controversial character. But for what it's worth, we managed to get some great entertainment out of De Luca yesterday. And this is Brian Bulgak of the Lotto-Belisol squad, 184th overall at 35 minutes and 14 seconds. Not a factor overall, but making big effort to stay out front with over 6 minutes advantage now, the 5 riders up front, as the Omega Pharma-Quickstep and Argos-Shimano teams take responsibility for controlling the breakaway. So clearly John Degenkolb and Mark Cavendish believe that they can be in contention for victory at the end of today's race. Orica-GreenEdge also represented at the front. Matthew Harley-Goss will be many people's favourite for honours this afternoon, but he's going to have to get past this man, Mark Cavendish. You can be sure if Mark Cavendish is in the group at the finish, well, few would bet against him at this point. Cavendish, who took his 11th career success in the Giro d'Italia in the first stage in Naples. And Nasser Bouhanni at the back of the group also is perhaps has a great chance of getting involved in that as well. Third on that first stage. The man from Française de Jeu, distinctive there in the French national champions jersey. Just over 80 kilometers to go. 6 minutes and 39 seconds. What's the maximum they can be allowed? It's absolutely billiard table flat going to that final hill, but that final hill will cost them.
Yes, and the normal calculation is a minute per 10 kilometres. That's what the rough calculation is, but also you have to take into account the final run in. Today is a bit more difficult. I think the riders out in front, our 5-man group away now, they will suffer a bit on the little bit of climbs that's there, so it'll probably be a bit more. When you look at just 7 minutes at the moment, it's pretty much under control, but sometimes it looks that way, and then suddenly the riders up in front, they really work well together. There's a number of very strong riders and they can hold off real well, but when you look at the group of riders out in the breakaway, I don't think they're going to cause a problem if they continue on working at this moment. But again, sometimes the teams riding in the front, Omega Pharma-Quickstep might say, well, we're not going to control everything. Orica-GreenEdge, like, they have to get up here, put in 2 men also, so sometimes the discussion starts, and then the peloton slows down a lot, and the breakaway could pull out 2 or 3 minutes in a very quick period. So but it's looking pretty much under control, and the calculations seem to be working out okay for the moment.
Yeah, certainly they will be ever vigilant. There are few enough opportunities for the sprinters team, so there's no way that they'll be letting that break get out of sight for too long or for too far. 5 riders up front now: Thomas Gill, Alan Marangoni, Ricardo Mestre, Brian Bulgak and Rafael Andriato, and they have an advantage of just about 6.5 minutes over the Maglia Rosa group, being led by Omega Pharma-Quickstep et al. Okay, join us after these.
Festina, official timekeeper, Tour de France.
In a world of myths and gods, glorious warriors and their allies advance into battle to expand their powerful empire and take command of Grepolis with their alliance. Choose your god and build your empire. Now free at grepolis.tv.
Welcome back. Steve Cummings at the back of the main peloton. The BMC rider in his customary position, enjoying the promenade along the coastline, heading towards Matera. And up front there are 5 riders with 6.5 minutes advantage over the peloton, which is being paced by Omega Pharma-Quickstep, and Orica-GreenEdge are in there, so too Argos-Shimano as they attempt to keep these breakaway riders under control. And this is hardly one for the GC contenders, just one to remain vigilant. Sean, let's go back to that big topic, Bradley Wiggins, the time lost yesterday, because there are all sorts of conspiracy theories coming out of it. First of all, let's try and address that point again. As far as the race jury are concerned, he wasn't actually in the group when they hit the 3 kilometers to go point, and the crash happened after that, but as far as they're concerned, he was already behind, so he has to lose the time.
Yes, that seems to be the situation, and there was probably little splits in the group, and that's the reason they gave the time to Wiggins, and it was already at the 3 kilometer mark when the crash occurred.
Okay, the intermediate sprint point at Rocca Imperiale goes to Rafael Andriato of the Vinny Fantini squad. He takes the points. He also takes the 6 seconds on offer towards general classification, which is of little interest to him, to be honest. As the peloton winds its way along the motorway and next to the coastline. They won't have time to look out onto the Ionian Sea as they race along the instep of the boot of Italy, heading towards Basilicata. And Wiggins, yes, he wasn't going to get that 17 seconds back. There wasn't much of an argument. There's all sorts of talk about the fact that there were 2 Sky riders up ahead. They didn't wait for him. And Gazzetta dello Sport today has a little bit of a conspiracy theory suggesting that Rigoberto Urán may well be on his way out of Sky at the end of the year, and was perhaps a little bit more concerned about his own looking after his own general classification situation, and less concerned with looking after his team leader.
Yes, well, of course, Rigoberto Urán in his own right, he's a very good general classification rider. I would not take too much from that, but when you look at this, the group that came in all at the same time, there was 36 riders in there, and then there was another group of 10 riders at 10 seconds, and then Wiggins came in a bit further down. So the commissar was very tight on the gaps between the groups, and of course when you come in a group, it's the first man that come over the line in a group. So there's a line of 36 riders. It's the guy who wins the stage actually yesterday. That's where the time is taken, and then it starts to tick down onto the next group come in. So the head of the next group. So you can imagine like the seconds tick away very quickly, and that's what happened. There was gaps between those groups. I suppose from Sky point of view, if you look at Heño, he was up there as well. He was ahead of Wiggins in that group of 36 riders who finished on the same time as the winner of the stage. That should not have been. There should have been somebody to follow Wiggins in that final yesterday. It should have been team orders, because if you look behind Wiggins, the next man from Sky, Sitsov, was 3:24 down. So you imagine if Wiggins crashed and he break his bike, like he could have lost 2 or 3 minutes, because the car's not going to be there, because there's many groups on the road, the cars aren't allowed in between. It could have been a disaster. What he lost at the moment is nothing. There's a lot of talk about it, but really it doesn't count at all. That small number of seconds, 17 seconds, it means nothing, but it could turn out to be a disaster, and that's where they have to have a man. If you have 3 men from Sky there, there should be one guy who should follow Wiggins or stay close to him in case he has a mechanical problem and he break his bike.
Any weight to the conspiracy theory, or it was just a bit of carelessness from them?
Well, I suppose in the final yesterday you can understand, because it was hectic. The descent, the wet roads, everybody was panicking a bit, but still, you have to, give them orders, and somebody has to stay close to Bradley Wiggins, because he is, the big favourite for this Giro, and I think, it should be the rider himself who makes the decision. When you're out there on the road, you can see what's happening, and you have to, to make a decision yourself. So probably a little bit of inexperience as well. If you had some of the guys who were the real good domestiques, the real good helpers, well, they would, see immediately, and they can make the decision, decide what's to be done, and they would be able to do it. But probably everybody in a bit of panic yesterday, and I'm not surprised with that final hectic running.
So not likely to be any lasting recriminations from the Sky team. And let's face it, it was 17 seconds, as Brailsford said. It's the time that Bradley Wiggins had already gained, so they're just kind of back to honours even at this point.
Yes, but you still don't like losing a number of seconds to the other favourites. That's, as a rider, you hate losing any second at all to the other big favourites, and when you lose it in a final, if it's because you have a position which is not good or something, well, then you're a little bit disappointed with yourself. But I suppose yesterday, considering the very dangerous final it was, it's not anything to be worried about.
Plenty of comments coming in on Twitter. It's at DQ Sport. Slow down saying it there for Peter Davis at DQ Sport. Spike Pitts asking, do you think the time Bradley lost is a danger? And Urán outside bed? I mean, is Urán... He's a potential GC contender. Finished top 10 last year, won the white jersey. He's one for the future. There's plenty of talk today that he's pretty much definitely on his way out of Sky at the end of the year. If that's true, then he's got big ambitions in the future. A colourful character, an amazing story actually. He took up cycling when he was aged 14, and his father was shot dead. He was caught in crossfire in his little town in Colombia, and he had to go out and earn the money for the family from the age of 14, and he still managed to, while he was selling lottery tickets, he also went to school, and he also found time to do a bit of cycling training, and turned pro as a junior. When he was 16 years of age, he told the team that he was going to have to give up cycling unless they could find some money to give him. So he was a professional from the age of 16 and came to Europe, and his career has blossomed from then. So he's an interesting character. He's clearly very strong, and one for the future. So do you think that Sky could actually play the Rigoberto Urán card, having 2 general classification contenders? There's been so much talk about it for the Tour de France with Froome and Wiggins. Is it possible that Urán could also be another card for them here?
Well, it is possible that he could be up there in the end, but it will depend in the situation of the race. If it comes to a position where in the situation where there's a group away or somebody has to do the chasing, and a lot of the Sky team riders have done their work already in the day, in the mountain stages I'm talking about, well then Rigoberto Urán could be asked like to start setting the pace in the front or to chase down some of the other big favourites. So you know, that's something I think we'll have to wait and see, depending on what happened in this race, how dominant this team Sky are in the mountain stages.
Fairley has asked for a list of the riders that are out of the race at this moment. Just 2 riders from the 207 that started on Saturday are out. Pablo Urtazan, who crashed on the first day, but he's been struggling with injuries since then, and he's cried enough, so he didn't sign on this morning. And also we lost yesterday Sandy Kazar with a broken wrist, or a broken bone in his wrist. He was hoping to ride all 3 Grand Tours this year. It's not going to happen for him, and indeed he'll be in a race against time to try and get fit for the Tour de France, which obviously would be a major goal for the Française de Jeux team. Confirmation of that intermediate sprint taken by Rafael Andriato. Alan Margoni in second position. Well, one person's asking here, Jimmy Smith says, what age is best to turn pro? Rigoberto Urán, full-time bike rider from the age of 16, probably not ideal.
Well, I think you know, a full-time bike rider, you must you know, you have to really look at what exactly he was doing. He was probably in a club where he was being supported there as a junior maybe, or as an amateur, and that does happen. So do you call that professional? You know, some guys get support in the bigger clubs. That is a normal procedure. So and they do continue on with their education as well, do college, but it's really like until you get to 19 or 20, that's the time you should become a professional and become a full-time bike rider. But there is riders, you know, when they are in the junior ranks, they're already full-time.
Yeah, you were full-time in France from what age? About 19, was it?
19.
That was earlier than some.
Well, I think the situation, like in Ireland, the level of competition wasn't great, so I decided to go to France, and because the club there had an invitation from a club in Metz that the previous year they said if I wanted to come to race in France, I'd be always welcome, and I could see, and everybody knew that the level in France was much better at that time, much better organised, so that was the reason I went there. But 19, you know, depending on what program races you're doing as well, because you can race in amateur at that time as well, but you can race in the professional ranks and, you know, do smaller races, 19, 20. You don't have to do the big 3-week tours, so it's a build-up process, and you know, if you're looked after the team, there's no problem being professional like at 19 or 20 if you do not get too many difficult races.
And were you looked at with Flandria, was it, that you started with?
Well, I started with Flandria, yes, that was the Belgium team, but I went to France to an amateur club a bit before that, and I was with Jean de Gabaldi, who looked after me during my career, and was a big part of, you know, the cog in my career, let's say, because he looked after me very well, and the first couple of years I did not have to do too many races in the year.
Yeah, it's all about, and of course it's trying to figure out how a rider is developing physically. Some riders are fully grown men at 18, others will take a few more years to grow into their bones.
Yes, well, with the junior ranks, of course, that is a situation where, you know, some of them at 17 they develop very quickly, and they're much ahead of the other ones, and they have the advantage in the junior ranks. But when you move on to 23, well, then it starts to even out a bit more, and I think it's a more of a level playing pitch. But with the juniors, you'd see some of them, you know, doing performances when they're in their first year junior, but then they have a bit more difficulty when they move into the under 23 rank.
Carl Roach saying Cadell seems to have been overlooked yesterday, with conditions bad. Being in the right place could make all the difference. He's riding a canny race so far for Cadell Evans. Came to the race late, bit of a late decision, but relentlessly competitive man, and at 36 years of age shows absolutely no signs of giving in. And well, he certainly is. He's right there or thereabouts in overall classification. He hasn't lost out so far.
No, and yesterday was a run-in which wasn't really difficult, so there were so many riders up there. At the top of the hill, it looked like there were about 68 riders all together, and then on the descent, that's where the split started to occur, and 36 riders finishing on the same time as the winner, and then it just went on from there. So you look at the riders who were up front, like Betancourt and his teammate Pozaviva. They finished up in the front group, so you know they did a good job, as many of the other favourites did. So it's a little bit of a look yesterday, because the big road on the way down, if there was a number of riders just come over, a big flush of riders, 15 riders, well then you could get you know, pushed back a lot in the peloton in the final number of kilometres.
Still 5 riders up front. They have an advantage of just about 6.5 minutes as the peloton goes about whittling that down.
You'll be greeted by a modern and sensational country from the second you arrive. The world meets in Brazil. Come celebrate life.
Festina, official timekeeper, Tour de France.
In a world of myths and gods. Glorious warriors and their allies advance into battle to expand their powerful empire and take command of Grepolis with their alliance. Choose your god and build your empire. Now free at grepolis.tv.
Welcome back to stage 5 of Giro d'Italia 2013, with 5 riders up front as they race towards Matera. And the conditions have changed for the riders out on the route, because the breakaway riders have hit wet roads, and it's been absolutely torrential downpour conditions at the finish at Matera. And the organisers are working desperately to try and clear the rain away and squeegee as much of it off the road as the riders will work their way towards the finish. The peloton are fairly animated now, keeping a decent tempo and making sure that they keep those breakaway riders in check. 5 riders up front, as I say: Thomas Gill of Androni, Alan Marangoni of Cannondale, Riccardo Mestre of Euskaltel, Brian Bulgak of Lotto-Belisol, and Rafael Andriato of Vinnie Fantini are the riders up front. And in the peloton, they've obviously, well, perhaps they've seen the black clouds up front, or they've heard from their team directors that the wet roads are not far away, because plenty of riders are putting on gilets and rain jackets. Not yet though for Cadel Evans, wearing the points leaders jersey, of course, because that competition is being led by Luca Paolini, who's the overall general classification leader, and Paolini in the Maglia Rosa. So Cadel Evans, an overall contender who's keeping himself very much in touch. He managed to finish 6th in the gallop at the end of yesterday's stage, racing into Serra San Bruno. Evans just behind Arnold Jansson, Rigoberto Uran, Giovanni Visconti, Fabio Fellini and Enrico Battaglia. 5 riders up front of stage 5 of Giro d'Italia: Thomas Gill, Riccardo Mestre, Andriato, Marangoni and Bulgak have been toiling away in the conditions as they work their way around the Ionian coast. It's a wide, long coastal road, flat roads for the most part, until they get to that short, abrupt Monte Scaglioso climb, about 10 kilometers from the finish. And they'll have a short descent, then it falls flat uphill to the stage finish in Matera. The question is, can they make it to that hill? Can they manage to hang out in front? They have to believe it's possible. Either way, it's good for them to show the jersey. And it's hardy perennial, this question as well. Sean, do they have wet weather tyres? Are they the same tyres no matter what the conditions?
Same tyres no matter what the conditions in the normal road racing. The only time they've changed tyres is for the Classics course, of course, and in the race like Paris-Roubaix.
Well, here's a perfect example. I mean, if they had to use wet weather tyres, then the entire bunch would have to stop, change wheels. It would be absolute chaos out there. So they need an all-round tyre for all-round conditions. And well, there could be any conditions out there. They might have snow or ice at the top of mountain passes. You wouldn't know what they'll face. Particularly in the Giro, it's that little bit earlier in the year, and when they hit the mountain passes, it can be quite cold up there.
Yes, well, it can be very cold up there, and that time of year. I suppose, example, Milan-San Remo, but this year we see the conditions they had when they got to the Torcino climb. It was snow and horrible conditions, freezing conditions. So, but as we get into the big mountain stages here, if we get some, bad weather conditions the days previous, well, then it gets very cold. And from the past, we have seen, some snow there. It can be 2 meters high at the side of the road. If it's dry, it's okay, but if you get wet conditions, well, then it gets very cold, because when you get wet through and you go up in the climbs the temperatures drop drastically on the descent, you can get so cold. And we can see here a lot of riders in the peloton putting on their gilets. It tells that the temperature has dropped a lot, because normally when you get a shower, which it is only a shower for the moment, you just ride on and you dry out pretty quickly, but it seems that it seems the temperature seems to be dropping quite quickly.
Nice demonstration there from rider Hejidal, struggling in the wind a little bit to put on his gilet. Most of the riders going for sleeveless gilets, just keeping the wind off their chest, keeping the rain off their chest, but a little less concerned with keeping their arms warm. And it's different strokes for different folks, really, because so quickly these jackets become a liability when the conditions improve again. It's amazing the aerodynamic penalty that these jackets cause as well. They fill up like a balloon. They're like windsocks on the riders, and you can be sure it's taking them extra watts to go at the same speed as a result. Mark Cavendish content to ride along without recourse to any extra clothing. Nathan Haas there of the Garmin Sharp team, deep in conversation with the former world champion. Cavendish has plenty of company and looks very relaxed indeed.
Yes, Adam Blythe, another British rider there from the BMC team. That tells like the pace is just really knocked off quite a lot, and they're just having a little bit of a chat there, and you need that at these long stages. When there's a breakaway out front, from experience in the past, you get these flat stages with a hill, 2 hills in the very final, a break gets away and they're allowed to take that 4 or 5 minutes, and it can be a long day and it can be a boring day for the riders, and especially when you get the conditions we're getting now, a bit of rain, but if you get rain all day, well, then it's a real killer, and the morale is not great with some of the riders. But if you can get into have a talk about yesterday's stage, have a talk about anything, and it just passes the time a bit, it helps a lot.
Kind of hard for some people to understand that they are using up significant amounts of energy. They just have this ability to go at a serious rate. At the same time, it's not causing them any shortage of breath. They're able to have a conversation and able to chat, get a few sentences out at a time.
Well, these guys, when they're going at this rate at probably 35, 36k per hour, the guys out in front have to push on a bit. The pace setters, the mistakes, but the riders are in the drafting here. You get pulled along, you get sucked along in the drafting there so easily, and they're at ease riding along. You could see Mark Cavendish and a number of other riders having a chat here. They're very comfortable at this pace.
Yeah, they might use. I saw one of the stats the other day. It was Cameron Worth, his blog. His stats for the day were about 235 watts average for the day. And you might think that a good amateur could do something like that, but a good amateur could never get to the heights and the incredible peaks that these riders get to when it comes to the final. And when they get to those hills, they just get blown into a different dimension. And riders getting the food in as well. That's so important. And just from Androni Giocattoli, Venezuela, Mattia Gavazzi, who's been pretty active so far in Giro d'Italia, and Bradley Wiggins keeping a low profile down towards the back. Olympic time trial champion of course after his Annus Mirabilis that was 2012. Well, can he add to that in 2013? And he's got a little bit of company there. The sort of company that perhaps you were suggesting he should have had yesterday. It's Salvatore Puccio, of course, the man who had the Maglia Rosa a couple of days ago. Puccio now is 82nd overall. He's 14 minutes and 36 seconds down, so he's not going to trouble the GC contenders anymore. But, well, he had a great day. It was a great opportunity, great moment for him in his first Grand Tour. Yeah, a bit of chat on Twitter. At Jimmy Smith CRC asks, what chain set is Wiggins using in this year's Giro? Is he going with his usual oval or a normal round version? Normal round. He seems to have moved away from those isometric chain rings. Jury's out on them. I personally haven't tried them, so I don't have an opinion, but some people say they're absolutely fantastic and they really smooth out the pedal stroke. They give you a little bit of an extra boost in the, at the dead spot. But they do come with a little bit of a penalty. You do have to change your pedaling technique. And it has been said as well that they can cause a little bit of difficulty when you're moving from big ring to small ring. That there's a potential to unship the chain. And it would appear that Bradley Wiggins has made a change, as we see Luca Paolini, the race leader. Does he have a problem? Is he just going back for a bottle? We saw yesterday he spent as much time back at the car having a chat as he did up front. Maybe he's just, as you say, Sean, bored and feels like a chat. And he just tucks in there at the back of the group while he waits for his team car to come up. They'll be made aware of the fact that the man from Katusha needs to speak to his team car. The commissar just behind will put the word out on the radio, and the Katusha car will be up very quickly. And of course, the Katusha car should be right to the front anyway. They lead both the overall classification of riders and of teams. And someone's pointed out no skiing helmet for Paolini today. He hasn't got that distinctive domed Giro helmet. You would have thought today would be a great day for it, because it's not as hot as it has been in the first couple of stages. I think it's a waste of energy, him going back each time. Should he not be on the radio? Or
well, you would expect him to be able to commute over radio. When you're going at a slower pace, it's that much easier as well. It's when you're going really fast, you know, with the wind there, it's difficult for the director sportive to hear what you're saying. But some of the riders go without the earpiece, of course, and maybe I haven't really took notice there. Paolini, maybe he isn't, you know, using the earpiece, and some riders do go for that.
Yeah, because it must be quite invasive to have that in your ear, and it's kind of annoy you actually in the long stages.
Very much so, and depending on your director sportive as well. Because some of the director sportives from my time, I did not have the earpiece, but you know, when you were in a time trial, for example, they had the loud hailer, and they would be just all the time onto you, out of the saddle, up your gear. You know, they're just telling you how to ride the bike, really, and it can be, you know, it can be really difficult. You can imagine having the earpiece and the director sportive, you know, all the time. You would be inclined to tell them where to go, I think, on some occasions.
So you never needed that motivation, no?
Well, sometimes you need it because you know, if it's in a time trial where you're climbing and that, and you have to, you know, you have to keep the rhythm at the same. And when you sit down the saddle after being out of it for maybe 150 meters, you need that bit of rest. So it does help. You know, it really push you on. But some director sportives overdo it.
Yes, director sportives like to get involved if they can, like to make some sort of a contribution. They must feel a little bit helpless sitting in the car for so much of the day. Okay, 5 riders up front: Thomas Gill, Alan Marangoni, Riccardo Mestre, Brian Bulgak and Rafael Andriato. And they have a handy advantage of 6 minutes and 40 seconds at the moment over the peloton, which is at the moment promenading along at a very controlled rate. So 5 riders up front, as I say, they have that advantage. So we'll see how they get on after this short break.
Festina, official timekeeper, Tour de France.
Dikkat et oğlum.
Pas op.
Pas op, pas op, pas op.
Attentie in spaatnummer.
Nee.
Kalm, kalm.
Kalm.
Jetzt die Chance auf der anderen Seite.
Goed, schiet. Goed, doe maar.
Goed.
Goal, goal,
Follow the score of your favorite team live and find the latest results and features with Eurosport's live score.
Get Eurosport.com for your iPhone free. Every day sees full and expert coverage of sports news with dozens of articles and an easy one-stop video section that lets you live and relive the very best moments of sport. Follow all the scores, fixtures and tables live. Eurosport.com, the reference and sport apps available on the App Store.
Welcome back. Argos-Shimano are on the front for John Degenkolb. Orica-GreenEdge are there too. So too are Katusha of the race leader Luca Paolini on stage 5 of Giro d'Italia as they work their way towards Matera. 203 kilometres for the riders, and they've hit damp roads. It's been absolutely torrential conditions at the finish line in Matera, but they're working to clear the roads for the riders as they make their way along the Ionian coastline. They've got the final climb of Monte Scaglioso facing them with 10 kilometres remaining in the stage. But it does look as if it's one for the sprinters, and certainly that's the belief of Argos-Shimano, GreenEdge. And we haven't seen Amiga Pharma-Quickstep up there of late. They've gone back into the peloton, but Mark Cavendish has been much in evidence today, and he's got to believe that he's got a great chance of getting over that finishing hill and into contention for stage honours today. Another one tomorrow is absolutely billiard table flat. There are no classified climbs, and it's pan flat right through to the finish, so that's definitely one for the sprinters. This one, a likely one for the sprinters. Just pared that advantage of the leaders back a little bit. Perhaps it's getting a little bit of a concern. 63 kilometres to go, minute for every 10 kilometres. Perhaps they need to start thinking about closing that down. Remember, they do have that climb a little bit closer to the finish where they'll eat into that advantage significantly, so the 1 minute for 10 kilometres advantage will be less significant. Thomas Gil Martinez of Androni. Giocattoli Venezuela is up front. He's accompanied by Alan Marangoni of Cannondale. Rafael Andriato on screen here for Vinny Fantini. Brian Bulgak is there for Lotto-Belisol. Ricardo Mestre for the Euskaltel team. There's Bulgak, and Mestre working his way up and around him. Bulgak now 25 years of age from the Netherlands. In his second year with Lotto-Belisol. Before that he was with the Rabobank Continental squad. Rode the Giro last year and managed to make it around 102nd position, so capable of getting around a Grand Tour. The stage in the Okolo-Slovenska in 2011, his best result to date, so very much one of the workers on the Lotto-Belisol team. And now these conditions are worsening considerably, and this is what the riders are facing into. They'll be made aware of how difficult things are from now on. And now it's about vigilance, it's about concentration, it's about staying up front and making sure that you concentrate. And it's just, like you say, Sean, it is kind of soul-destroying for the riders if they have this day in, day out. And indeed, the long-range weather forecast we understand for next week is for sort of inclement weather. So the likelihood is that this could be an arduous and difficult Giro for the riders.
Yes, well, of course, the weather conditions, if you get a number of days of wet and colder conditions, it does affect the performance later on, and that's not something a lot of the riders would like. And we can see here they're going through a real, downpour at the moment. But I think, we can see the breakaways that they're getting through that, and it's drying off once again. So fingers crossed in the very end, that's what they need, just a bit of dry conditions for the last hour of racing, and that would be a big help. At the moment, it's not causing a problem because they're on pan straight road, and there's no real aggressive racing at the moment. And the director of sport lead, of course, will make him aware. It's just a show, guys. It will be 10 kilometres to be all over, and the sunshine further up the road. They'll be given the information that at the breakaway they're in the sunshine already. So just encourage them to get through this bad moment.
Vitaly Gashpar says that those Giro helmets aren't hot at all in hot conditions, no matter how many events they've got. So I haven't actually worn one, so fair enough, good point. Doesn't really explain why Paolini is or isn't wearing it today. Wonder why he's decided to change. Paul Griffin's asking at Spooner IRL, question for Sean, what's his opinion on Nairo Quintana? Do you think he's a future Tour winner? Is that a bit of a stretch at this stage?
I think it's early days yet, because you have to prove yourself gradually over a number of years, and to be consistent in a 3-week tour, you have to be able to do that at least on one occasion, and then it doesn't always follow on. So you need to build up slowly, and I suppose win races as well. A week-long race, if you can win a number of them, like a Paris-Nice, like a Dauphiné Libéré, like a Trino-Adriatico, for example. Although Trino-Adriatico is probably more, sprinters can win that, but certainly a Dauphiné Libéré, a Tour of Switzerland, that is the first step, I think, towards winning a big tour, a 3-week one.
A couple of questions in from viewers that are interested in to understand what the difference is between electronic gears and mechanical gears. It's quite simply that, isn't it? It's an electronic shift. It's an electrical signal that is sent to the derailleurs front and rear that makes a shift, and I mean, they really are a tremendous addition. But do they make the shifting that much quicker? Do they make that much of a difference? I think they're definitely an advantage in terms of having the facility to put shifters in different parts of the bars. And I think when it comes into the sprint, you're able to sort of maybe flick it down a couple of sprockets just that much easier. In terms of pretty much every other element of cycling, whether there's a massive advantage offered by them, it's certainly very interesting technology, isn't it?
Yes, it is very interesting, and it does function very well. It's very precise, although when you have the bike which is in good condition, and when you get a new bike, of course, the shifters, they work very well. The manual ones, they're so precise, and they're very, very light as well. But as the cables get a bit used, and that is the thing about the professionals, their bikes are maintained 100% by the mechanics. The cables will be changed very regularly, so the manual function works very well. But if you're a normal leisure rider, and you ride your bike, and you're out training on the weekends, you don't wash your bike maybe for a week or so, well, that affects the function of the cables. So it's all about maintaining your bike, and if it's in real good condition, well, then the manual one works very well, but the electrical one certainly a bit more comfort.
Yeah, because they self-trim and they kind of self-adjust themselves, so it's it's very clever technology. Campagnolo have their 11-speed electronic system, and Shimano now have moved to 11-speed. They brought out the Di2 system, which of course they've moved on to Ultegra as well as Dura-Ace with it. My riders working well out front. Meanwhile, in the bunch behind, they've got to move on in a big way, and they've managed to slice more than a minute off the breakaways lead within the last few kilometers. So clearly there's a big move on in the bunch, and this is difficult times for all the riders, because they can feel the pinch in the bunch, and they can certainly feel it in the break as well. They've got to try and step on the gas a bit to see can they hang on out there for a little bit longer. Franco Bongiorno of the Bardiani Valvole squad we saw there working his way up the group with his cape flapping around in the wind. And it's dark and overcast over the Basilicata region. Clouds hanging, and look at that rain. Absolutely horrific conditions for the riders. And this an indication of just how dark it is. It was very dark and overcast yesterday, and conditions repeated once more heading towards the finish line in Matera as Argos, Orica-GreenEdge, they step it up on the front. 2 riders each. Katusha play a watching brief. They'll have done a good bit of the work early on, and they're there to lend a hand if necessary. The first Chinese competitor in the history of Giro d'Italia, Shengji, on the front for Argos-Shimano.
Interesting to see Omega Pharma-Quickstep, nobody up here at the moment. It's surprising that they're not putting 1 or 2 men up there, because the other sprinters teams have got men here, and I wonder what's the tactic here.
What's the thinking? Is Cav not on a good day and he said, well, no point in wasting the energy, or is it, well, if the other guys are going to do it, let them?
Well, I think it could be maybe a bit of bluff also, saying that, well, the hill in the end, I don't think I'm going to get over it, and just not put somebody in the front. But surprising, because they are always willing to work, and Omega Pharma, we did see him in the earlier part of this race taking control when there was a sniff of a stage victory, and they really just took control of the peloton and started riding in the front of the very earlier stage. So it's surprising to see that they haven't got at least 1 man up there, because when you see Argos-Shimano, you see Omega, Orica-GreenEdge, sorry, so the big sprinters teams have all got men up there.
So Rafael Andreato in the break for Vinny Fantini. He's in his 2nd season with this squad. He's 25-year-old Brazilian. Best success was the Jurmala Grand Prix last year. Jurmala Grand Prix 1.1. Clearly a man for the future. Iris Capecchi. There's the transponder on his rear chainstay, and that was the item of technology that helped the race jury decide that Bradley Wiggins was not with the lead group as he went through the 3-kilometre point yesterday afternoon. They took the times at the 3-kilometre point. It's not a GPS unit, so it's not they can give real-time right the way through the final kilometres, or the final 4 or 5 whatever kilometres. It's just at the 3-kilometre point they were able to establish that there was a gap between himself and the group up front, and that was the piece of evidence. Hang on. And there's confirmation. Pablo Urtasun has retired from the race, the 2nd retirement, joining Sandy Cazar on the abandonments list. Disappointment for the young Spaniard. 5 minutes and 8 seconds for the 5 riders up front. So Gil, Marangoni, Mestre, Bulgak and Andreato could well have that sinking feeling, or will they have an opportunity perhaps to move the gap out a little bit? Let's see how they get on. We're going to take this chance for a short break. Rejoin us after these.
Prenez vos places, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
There's a sign of weakness in the other one, and
oh, what a shot!
Goodness only knows how she managed to do it in the end. It's out!
Can, and there has been only one winner.
And now, here goes Joaquin Rodriguez.
Here it comes. Nibali just kicks away. Look at that! Perfectly delivered, and he's just said goodbye to everybody.
Hall goes bang, and the Suns are going to go on and win round 1. Going to look to hit the ground running this evening in front of their home crowd support. That is absolutely amazing from Ablett.
But he's still going. Mario Gomez against the goalkeeper. That's a fabulous goal.
Oh, yes. Oh, unbelievable. Arguably the goal of the game.
All sports, all emotions. May on Eurosport 2.
Welcome back. The peloton are racing through torrential rain in stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia as they head towards Matera. 203 kilometres for the riders today. There's a group out front of 5 riders, and their current advantage is just over 5 minutes. There's the scene at the finish line. Well, it's still raining. It's still absolutely chucking it down. Everybody huddled under umbrellas or under any bit of tent or awning or any bit of shelter that they can get. There's no such respite for the riders. They've got to plough on through these conditions. It's conditions for ducks or for motorboats or whatever, but the riders have just got to make the best of it. And those are the 5 breakaway riders: Thomas Gill of the Androni squad, Anna Marangoni of Cannondale, Ricardo Mestre of Euskaltel, Brian Bulgak of Lotto-Belisol, Rafael Andreato of Vini Fantini, just over 5 minutes advantage as Movistar take it up on the front. A bit of a surprise to see Movistar taking responsibility here, Sean.
Well, I think Ventoso, again, this final would be a final that would suit him. The hills he can get over that. As a very good sprinter, he can get over them quite well, better than the top sprinters. So they feel they can do something here today. He was unlucky yesterday because he had a mechanical problem at a very, very bad moment, and he had to make a big effort to get back into the peloton again, and he paid that in the final. Just wasn't able to hold on in the front group.
Still, it's unusual to see them there. I mean, Movistar could probably get away with not doing it, could they? I mean, maybe Ventoso feels that he's on good form and wants them to drag it along a little bit faster, maybe put some people under pressure, but it's a surprise. Or maybe is it good karma? Is it good for relationships among the teams that you do show willing a little bit?
Well, I think the teams are making the calculation now. Omega Pharma-Quickstep are not riding. They must feel that it's going to be a bit difficult for Cavendish maybe to get through, and immediately Movistar, they would say, well, Ventoso can get over the climbs much better than some of the other sprinters, and with the advantage at the moment, the 5-minute advantage, which was just over 50 kilometres, they have to keep on moving here, because if they have a little bit of a downtime and they start getting into discussion who's actually going to chase, what teams are going to put a man in the front, then that advantage would grow out a bit more, and then it would be difficult to close down, because the calculation, as we said yesterday, 10 kilometres per minute, that's what you have to calculate. So they have to keep on working, and I suppose if you do not contribute in the front, some of the other teams might say as well, it's going to be difficult to close this one down. I don't think we'll take the risk of putting a man on the front, tying them out, and maybe not catching the breakaway. So if you put a man up there for Movistar, for example, and then the other teams who have got one up there already, the teams just keep on working, and they keep it pretty much under control for the moment.
Got a quick shot of David Apollonio of the 82R Le Mondial squad, who's been in the wars. He's got the bandages. Andy Wiggins looking fairly relaxed about affairs despite the weather. It's not affecting him too much. Someone's asking whether these weather conditions might actually aid the British riders. Didn't really aid Bradley Wiggins too much yesterday, but I don't think he'll be too much affected, and he'll be too bothered about the rain. He's had plenty of rain in his lifetime, as indeed have most of the riders. They desperately try and clear that rain and drain it away from the start-finish line, and make sure, or the finish line, and make sure that all of that electrical equipment is not in any way affected. At the moment, we've got pictures at the finish line and out on the course, and that is a relief, you'd have to say, given the conditions at the finish line. And we're in the Basilicata region, which of course is the home region of the climber Domenico Pozzovivo. And I don't think it's on these flat roads that he got his talent as a climber. He's amazing when it comes to the really, really, really steep stuff, because he's got to be one of the smallest men in the peloton.
Yes, tiny guy, real lightweight, and that makes for a great climber. It's not a guarantee, but he is one of the real the real good climbers and you know, the mountaintop finishes. That's where he will be hoping to do something. But yesterday, a very good performance for him, staying in that front group, not losing any time, because that's something which he certainly does not like. You know, the run in with a group of riders where there are a lot of pushing for positions. He's not able to do that. The wet conditions also he would not like it. But you know, limited any loss yesterday and finished with the main group, so that was a good performance by him. And we will definitely see him in the mountain stages. What he will do in the overall classification, if he can stay up there, and the first week of this race is going to be, you know, the important part for him, because a lot of nervousness in the bunch and a lot of pushing for positions every day as we get to the final, as we had yesterday, as we will have today. And when he gets through those days, when the race settles down and get into bigger mountains, well then if he's not too far off in the general classification, he could be very much up there for a top 5 in the general classification.
It's an interesting opportunities for AG2R in this Giro, with Pozzovivo and of course with Betancourt as well. So they've got plenty to fight for, heading towards Matera. And Matera is being used as a stage finished in the Giro on 5 previous occasions. First time was 1976, a rider that Sean will probably remember well. Johan de Muynck took the victory on that occasion, and it was a bit of a controversial one because he attacked his teammate Roger de Vlemick of the Brooklyn team. Took the victory, got himself into contention for the lead. De Vlemick got the hump and went home for no obvious reason other than he was annoyed that his teammate had attacked him. And de Muynck was unfortunate because he crashed on the penultimate day and lost the race, although he did go on to win it a couple of years later. Keisho da Silva, another man that Sean knows well, he took the victory in 1985. Mario Cipollini has a couple of victories to his name in his storied Giro d'Italia career, 1998 and 2000. And Fabio Baldato was awarded victory in 2003 when they had a very, very similar run-in to today's run-in, and that's why the expectation is that many of the sprinters are going to be able to make it over the final climb, because the sprinters made it on that occasion. Robbie McEwen first across the line in 2003, but disqualified for somewhat robust tactics, so the victory went on that occasion to Fabio Baldato. 4:30 now the advantage as Sky get involved. Cannondale 2 also in line astern. Sky not so much involved with the chase as making sure they stay up front and keep Bradley Wiggins protected. Or is this Bradley at the back? Different camera angle. And there's a demonstration. You can see there very much round chain rings on that Pinarello Dogma that Bradley Wiggins is riding. Some people are suggesting that the latest iteration of Shimano Dura Ace isn't compatible with the Osamatric chain rings. I can't comment, I'm not absolutely sure of that, but that's as it's understood, as these 5 riders up front work to try and maintain their advantage. Now 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Rafael Andreato of Brazil hands over to Thomas Gil Martinez of Androni. Next man up is the Lotto-Belisol rider Brian Bulgak of the Netherlands. And he in turn will make way as they work up and over. He makes way for Ricardo Mestre. And interesting that Thomas Gil Martinez was beckoning Andreato through. This Basilicata region is also home to Fabian Cancellara's parents. Of course, Cancellara, his parents moved to Switzerland, and that's the nation that he represents, but his history is definitely in Italy. And also home to the family of Francis Ford Coppola, the famous movie director, and his nephew Nicolas Cage. They've got plenty of relations in the region. Great work being done by Cheng Ji on the front. He's not a big rider, but he's generating plenty of power, and it's a tough, hard day for him in the saddle. He's staying out there in front. It's a lonely position with around about 200 riders chasing you. Sitting out front in his own personal world of hurt, and all those other riders benefiting from your efforts. Got a message from Magnus Backstead. He says, Deck, basically Shimano 11 speed is only compatible with Shimano 11 speed. Nothing else really fits in any way. Special cranks, chain rings, just not an option. So thanks for that, Magnus. Magnus is looking pretty fit at the moment, isn't he, Sean? He's been doing a lot of triathlon training.
Yes, he is. Still looking in very good shape, and still talking about racing, and I think in the back of his mind he would love to be back in there racing again at the European level. You can feel that when you get into a conversation with him, that he is missing the buzz of being in there in the certainly, I suppose, in the classic races, the style of race where he really was, you know, a real good performer.
Yeah, he'd have enjoyed it today, and no doubt he'd have been asked to go to the front and do a job towards the finish. Magnus Backstedt, though, is very much involved in racing, of course, in Britain, and will be racing in the Tour Series coming up very shortly, so we wish Magnus well in that.
Christian Meyer leading here from Orica-GreenEdge, and they're upping the pace a bit, as has been upped out in the breakaway as well. We can see the 5 riders, you know, they're really trying to push on here. They know that there's a glimmer of hope here at the moment, and they will be made well aware of also that the team of Mark Cavendish is not riding for some reason here. So they'll be hoping that the teams maybe will start to lose interest a bit, and but at the moment it is coming down gradually, and you know, we can see more and more teams appearing to the front.
They appear to be timing it nicely. It's now well within 4 minutes. It's unlikely to stretch out again, you would have thought. At this point, the 5 riders up front are working away, but it's very difficult to see anything but this being a day for the sprinters, or at least being set up, and the possibility for them. So 5 riders up front with 3 minutes and 46 seconds advantage. Gill, Marangoni, Mestre, Bulgak and Andriato. Their days are numbered, their time is numbered, you would have to say, as they've got just over 27 miles left in this race. Join us for the next part after these.
In life and sport, dealing with the challenges ahead requires focus, concentration, and a will to succeed. The International University Sports Federation promotes sports values in tune with the academic spirit. Thousands of student athletes from around the world participate in FISU's world-class sport competitions. Today's stars, tomorrow's leaders.
Festina, official timekeeper, Tour de France.
In a world of myths and gods. Glorious warriors and their allies advance into battle to expand their powerful empire and take command of Grepolis with their alliance. Choose your god and build your empire. Now free at grepolis.tv.
Welcome back. 5 riders up front. This is Alan Marangoni of the Cannondale team, who gets out of the saddle. Tries to get on top of the gear. He's joined by Thomas Gill, Martinez, Ricardo Mestre, Andriato and Bulgak. And the gap between themselves and the peloton has been reduced by around about 15 seconds in the last few kilometres, so it's coming down very quickly indeed. And at 64 Fixed asks the question, why do directors sportives drive team cars? Wouldn't it be safer to let someone else drive?
Well, yes, it would be safer to leave somebody else drive, but of course then you need you need two men in the car, and in the teams, of course, you have director sportif number 1, number 2, and so on in the car. It's the same situation. So normally, the director sportif drive, but on some occasions we have seen, I think of recent, there was 3 days ago, we see Skinto. He was being driven by one of the other directors, and I think we also see it yesterday where he was also the passenger in the car. So it does happen, but normally it's the director sportif, number 1 director sportif, drives the number 1 car behind the peloton.
So the jackets are starting to come off because they've hit dry road. Riders heading back to the team cars, and the jackets being passed around like past the parcel in Katusha, as one rider is detailed to go back to the car and the other riders will save a little bit of energy because it's likely they're going to be going to the front very shortly. De Luca heads back to the car. And heads back with his own jacket and glasses, so he's comfortable with the idea of going back. He doesn't need someone else to do it. Paolini, by contrast, is the race leader and gets the little bit of extra attention, as befits the race leader of the first Grand Tour of the season, one of the biggest races in world cycle racing. And Nimic of the Lampre team as we get sight of the finish, and yeah, the finish line had to cut the hairdryer out because the finish line had been pretty much blown away, but well, it's blazing hot sunshine now and they've managed to clear away so much of the water, so things are looking up in a big way for the finish. So the likelihood is that we're not going to have quite such treacherous conditions. Having said that, there have been so many showers in the region in the last few days that anything could happen again, but well, there was a significant amount of water arrived from the skies in the last couple of hours. It's hard to believe that's going to happen again, but well, give it a minute. Anything can happen. Pavel Brut, big strong man, could be a man to do something in the States today. Well, he's happy enough also to work on bottle duty for the Katushas.
Yes, I don't think he's going to be really thinking of anything at this stage here. Katusha, they're going to look after the race leader, and it will be all hands to look after their pink jersey. And at the moment we can see there, they're just keeping to the front of the bunch, keeping things under control, but not contributing at all from the moment. So it will be interesting, but again, we will see the same situation where the teams will start fighting for positions as we get closer to the final times of the day.
So interesting to see Dario Cataldo on bottle duty for the team. He's gone back with a cape as well, and there's an indication perhaps that he's coming around a bit, because he lost quite a bit of time on the hills in the last 2 stages, and he would definitely have been expected to stay with Bradley Wiggins right through to the conclusion of those 2 stages, but unfortunately he's been suffering a bit. He's got a bug. Look at Laurent Pichon, the man we saw crashing in the first stage. Yes. Crashed all on his own on a flat road just on the descent, just as they reached the bottom of the descent.
And got a lot of stitches, of course. We can see there he's still, pretty heavily bandaged. I was reading there he got quite a big number of stitches, so got a very heavy fall on stage 1.
Yeah, good news for Wiggins that Cataldo seems to be back in good form. Certainly we hope he is for his sake, and indeed for Bradley Wiggins and the Sky Pro Cycling squad, as the 5 riders up front continue to power away. It certainly looks as if Marangoni is one of the stronger ones, as Ricardo Mestre, the 3rd wheel in the orange kit of the Euskaltel squad, struggles to get back into the wheels. There are the route details, and they will explain when Belamakers chooses to have a quick look at them, that it's a total of 203 kilometres. He'll certainly know that. He'll also know that the final climb to Monte Scaglioso comes around about 10 kilometres from the finish. 4 kilometres of a ramp. The last 2 of those kilometres are just under 10% average, and that's a bit of a lead breaker for those riders. And at this current rate of progress, they're going to get caught well before the hill. Will that suit the sprinter teams, or would they like to just control it just to the bottom of the hill?
Well, I don't think it's going to change a lot, because when you look at the final climb of the day, it's very close to the finish. The mountain classification, it's a 20 kilometers to go, so it's going to be just, you know, full on from there, and a little bit of a downhill, and then leading to the finish in Matera. It kicks up quite a bit, and then another bit of downhill, so it's going to be really racing full on at that time. So you know, if they have the brake caught before, or they're about to catch the brake on the climb or just on the descent, it's going to be really hectic times in the peloton.
Arangoni of the Cannondale team now, 28 years of age. The Italian in his 3rd season with this team, 2 seasons with Liquigas, and now it's as the Cannondale Pro Cycling team, his 3rd season. Before that he was with Colnago, CSF Inox, and before that CSF Group Navigar. Same squad actually, isn't it? Pro Continental. No big results so far this season. Meanwhile, it's back to a summer's day for the peloton. Well, enjoy it while you can, boys, because there's more rain waiting for you. But things have cleared up at the finish line in Matera, so hopefully, at least, there will be safe conditions for the riders when they hit the finish line. There's Apollonio again, once more at the back of the peloton. (23 years of age). Won a stage of Tour du Limousin in 2010. And a stage of the Tour de Luxembourg in 2011, but yet to land the big one. And the debate rages on about Osametric and Shimano compatibility. Titch Longley says, I'm sure the 11-speed chains are slightly thinner too, so wouldn't fit the Osametric chain rings. And at the scene out in the bay, as the riders will very shortly be heading inland from the Ionian coast and towards that final climb. We're quite close to the part of the world where the man who strikes fear, the very name strikes fear into generations of schoolboys. Pythagoras himself, he died here in 490 BC. And as I said earlier, the grandparents of movie director Francis Ford Coppola lived at Bernalda, quite close to here. Indeed, he owns a number of properties in the region, is a frequent visitor. So going through the overall standings, Luca Paolini has the advantage. He has the Maglia Rosa at the moment, 17 seconds to the good ahead of Rigoberto Urán. Benat Inchausti of the Movistar squad in 3rd place, 26 seconds in arrears. The first of the serious overall contenders, you might say, if that be the right phrase. Vincenzo Nibali is at 31 seconds in 4th place. Ryder Hejjedal just 3 seconds behind Nibali, the reigning champion, in 5th. And Bradley Wiggins has slipped from 2nd to 6th. He's 34 seconds, on the same time as Ryder Hejjedal, and just 3 seconds behind Vincenzo Nibali. So it's a pretty handy position for Wiggins, heading ever closer to that time trial on Saturday. And indeed, that time trial, Sean, is it's a long one. It's almost 55 kilometres, and it's a difficult one. It finishes with a very, very steep ramp towards the finish, as we see. Like a little bit of a skirmish in amongst the break. Ricardo Mestre is getting his instructions from the Euskaltel team car. What's he done? I'm tired. 2 minutes and 31 seconds their advantage. 35.7 kilometres to go. It's going to be tough for them to make it to the bottom of the hill. If they do, you would expect that Mestre might have an opportunity to do something.
Yes, I'm not too sure. He looks to be under pressure here, and you know, he's a small lightweight, and on the flat it's going to be difficult for him to keep on pushing with the other breakaway companions, and he seemed to be under a little bit of pressure here. He would prefer if he got into the hills a bit earlier, but still we have another 15 kilometres before we really get to the hill, so it's going to be difficult to see them with holding any advantage as they get to that climb. You know, it's coming down quite quickly, and we can see in the front of the bunch, you know, a lot of teams starting to appear, and when the climb is coming up, they will up the pace again. There will be a lot of movement there, and unfortunately for our breakaway, they've put in a real good performance here. You could see in the last 25 kilometres they've really upped the pace, but also back in the bunch you can see there's more and more teams putting a 1 or 2 riders on the front, and that's, you know, it's difficult against the 5 men who have been out there all day. A lot of fresh riders come to the front end of the bunch, and you know, they can really up the pace quite a lot.
Well, there's an example of team director not driving the car. Gianni Savia is in the passenger seat. As we climbed out the window there just to give his instructions to his rider, Thomas Gil Martinez. And we had a question in at the beginning of the day: why does Nasser Bouhanni have 100 on his back and not 101? Pretty much all the team numbers start with, or at least they end in the digit 1. But Nasser Bouhanni starts in 100. It's for a very simple reason that the number 108 has been retired because since the death of Wouter Wayland in 2011, died 2 years ago tomorrow on stage 3 of the 2011 Giro d'Italia, and since then they retired that number. And so Frances de Jeux squad starts with the 100, runs to 109, omitting 108. And indeed, Matt Stevens, his Twitter avatar is number 108. He was that number when he took part in the Giro d'Italia with the Linda McCartney team, and he was paying tribute to Wouter Wayland just before the start of the Giro. And that be seen over the recently irrigated lands by those incredible showers. As the riders work their way towards Matera, the advantage is shrinking fast for the 5 riders up front. Will they be able to hang on at least until the climb of Monte Scaglioso? It's not looking good for them at the moment, but it certainly is hotting up here in stage 5 of Giro d'Italia.
Festina, official timekeeper, Tour de France.
The Giro d'Italia on Eurosport is presented to you by BetAtHome.com. Life is a game.
You're very welcome back to stage 5 of Giro d'Italia 2013. The Vinnie Fantini squad were led admirably yesterday by Danilo De Luca, and he's been on camera quite a bit, yoing his way up and down the bunch today as the bunch closed down on the 5 breakaway riders up front as they toiled their way in dark, overcast conditions, but at least mercifully from their point of view, they are now dry. Shengji on the front has done great work for Argos-Shimano throughout the afternoon. Aided and abetted by Orica-GreenEdge. There's been a little bit of contribution too from Movistar. Omega Pharma-Quickstep were there for a while, but they're conspicuous by their absence in recent kilometres, and indeed they control things so much on stage one, and then kind of lost out a little bit in the last 5 kilometres. Didn't quite have the manpower to stay out front, so perhaps they've had a little bit of a change of heart. Is it different conditions? That's the question. Is it different route profile with that climb coming close to the finish that Omega Pharma-Quickstep have decided to change their mind?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Omega Pharma-Quickstep, Sean, can you imagine that perhaps they're thinking about trying to save their powder till the very, very last moment in the stage?
Well, it's a surprise to see nobody up there represented in the front, setting the pace in the front of the bunch, but maybe on the first stage there was not a lot of other teams contributed to Omega Pharma-Quickstep effort to keep the control most of the day, so it's probably a get back time, and they're probably saying, well, you don't give us a handout in stage one, so we're not going to do anything today, and you know that does happen. It is surprising that there's not one man up there, and when you look at the running today and looking at the past winners and all of that, you would expect that you know they have confidence that Mark Cavendish can get to the finish today and have a chance for a stage victory. And the problem is in this Giro, there's not a lot of opportunities in this year's race, because already you know we see yesterday was a difficult running. Today once again, normally in the first week of a big tour you would have maybe 3-4 days where it would be a certain opportunity for the sprinters, and that's not the case here, so surprising by their absence there on the front of the bunch.
Yeah, plenty of questions about yesterday's stage winner Enrico Battaglin. Wonderful performance from him from the tiny Bardiani Valvole squad. He's not related to the 1981 Giro winner Giovanni Battaglin, also noted frame manufacturer, from the same reason though, so perhaps they're distantly related, but no, certainly not a close relation. Battaglin, his amateur career paralleled that of Moreno Moser, another man carrying a very famous surname. Moser, of course, a nephew of the great Francesco Moser. Battaglin took a win in 2011 and a pretty quiet 2012. He's just in his 3rd season at this level, but he says he redoubled his efforts in the winter and really knuckled down to the training. Has come back fighting in 2013, and it's really paying dividends, because very impressive the way he's able to get over that final climb, surprising everyone, and there was no one going to stop him. He was by far the fastest sprinter in that group. Little look behind, 30 kilometers remaining for the break. They're still out front. Their time out front though is not likely to be too much longer. Judging by the pace of that bunch there, they're certainly working well, and they're going along at a fair old rate. It's inside 2 minutes now. Paul Kane wants to know, did you ever win any stages of the Giro? It wasn't your race, Sean, was it? Your sponsors tended to send you to the Vuelta, which in those days was a race in spring, and they overlapped. It clashed with the Giro, which is an unusual way of timetabling them in those days.
Yes, well, it did not actually overlap, but it was very close. Finish of Vuelta was quite close to the start of Giro, because of Vuelta was the earlier season, the earlier part of the season back in those days, and riding for a Spanish sponsor as well, I always had to do the Vuelta, and of course when you're going for the Tour of France also, it's not possible to do them all, although there's riders that has been able to take part in them all, but if you're going to be competitive in all three, it's very, very difficult to do that, and that was the reason that I only had one participation in the Giro.
Luke Durbridge national time trial champion of Australia on the front for Orica-GreenEdge, and doing a great job, as you might expect. He's a big engine, a big motor, just the sort of guy you'd want on the front of the group. And one of the Colombian riders, probably the last man of the bunch to take off his jacket. Those guys probably warm up a little bit, a bit slower than some of the other guys. Sabatini from the Cannondale Pro Cycling team at the back of the group. Damiano Caruso is one of the go-to guys for Cannondale. He's well up overall and might well have an opportunity to get involved today. As Durbridge pounds out the watts, setting a steady rhythm, and the teams are starting to get involved as they get closer. They're starting to get organised as they get closer to this climb. The Garmin's moving around as one unit, so too Vinny Fantini. We see the BMCs in red to the right of the lurid yellow shirts of Vinny Fantini. This is Caruso working his way back up through the cars for Cannondale. Clearly, judging by the urgency, I would suggest he's had a problem. Has he stopped to pick up a wheel? Won a stage of the Settimana Internazionale Coppe e Bartali this year, so he's in good form. Third in Tour of Britain last year, of course, was Damiano Caruso. And third on the stage of the Vuelta a couple of years ago. A couple of appearances now in Giro d'Italia. These five riders now 1 minute 19, 1 minute 20 their advantage over the front. They continue to work as hard as they possibly know how. Thomas Gil Martinez, busy sort of compact style, punches on the pedals. The lankier style of Brian Bulgak from Lotto-Belisol runs around the outside. Meanwhile,
Capecci from Movistar setting the pace here, and you can see there's a lot of teams starting to appear on the front, but they're really putting up a good performance out front, because it's going at a very fast pace. We could see there, you know, the peloton is up certainly, you know, doing 55 plus kilometers per hour here, and they're holding off quite well. But if they get to the climb, they might hold it, you know, hold a bit better if there's a downturn in the peloton.
Really is a sight to behold, a bunch in full flight, and how closely they run. Nice little slow-mo of the man from Argos-Shimano, Ji Cheng, who's done so much work today. Well, let's play tribute to him, the first Chinese competitor. Also, I think he's ridden Vuelta España as well, so it's not his first appearance in a Grand Tour, but his first appearance obviously in Giro d'Italia, and doing good work so far in week one. So Brian Bulgak has a little word with Thomas Gill, tries to encourage the riders to come around. Clearly Bulgak is still full of fight, and we know that Marangoni he's been going through like a train. Bulgak looks good, Marangoni too. Wonder, will we see any little skirmish? Will anyone decide to try and get away and try and jettison the riders that are a little bit less strong?
Well, I think with the peloton so close, they're really going to try and push on the climb, and the stronger ones will just push on here out of the five-man breakaway. But again, you know, the advantage, unfortunately, it's not going to happen for them today after putting in a great effort. And it's such a familiar in the early days of a big tour, you know, when the classement is quite close, and depending on who is in the race leadership as well, you know, Katusha, they want to hold on to this race leadership as long as possible. That's their that's going to be their exposure for the race, and the breakaway, you know, they did really put in a brave performance, but never allowed a great advantage enough to be able to have a chance to go on and contest for the stage victory.
Interesting question from Spike Pitt. Saying, what does Sean think of the idea of cutting back teams to 8, and how would that affect the teams in the race? I mean, making the team smaller is tougher to control. I suppose it's is it tougher for the riders? It would definitely make it, you know, would it make the racing more interesting?
Makes it much more difficult for a team who have got a leader, and if you become the race leader, well then you know, you need a lot of domestiques, and if you come back to 8, well then you have 7 workers, and if you have a problem in the earlier part of the race where you lose a rider through crash, through accident, well then, you know, it weakens your squad quite quickly, and that was something I think was aired as well. The Tour of France talked about that already maybe 2 years ago, where they were thinking of, you know, knocking back the number of riders in the team, but the teams were not agreeing. I think they immediately objected to that.
It's just tougher on the ride. It's going to lead to, would it lead to more attacking? Would it lead to less pattern there to the racing?
Well, I don't think it would change a lot in the pattern of the racing. It's just that when you have to control a race and you have, you know, the potential winners in the team, that's when you need a number of riders. The actual racing itself, from a more interesting, more aggressive racing, I don't think it would change anything if you had, you know, that less number of riders. And it's something like it's something the teams are used to, and, you know, in the big tours, having 9-man team. Well, then it's difficult, you know, to get them to change that. But it's possible that, you know, if there's more and more big teams that get into the Pro Tour status, well, then, you know, the automatic choice going into those races, well, it would definitely have to be considered then.
Yeah, there's also been quite a bit of debate in the last few years about the idea of maybe reducing the length of stages as well. That leads to more interesting racing, as we see problems up front for a couple of the riders, and the brake has split. Rafael Andriato is in trouble, as Ricardo Mestre, surprisingly, I think, really has gone ahead, but of little consequence really, because they're on the climb and the bunch is coming up behind, and very shortly they're going to be right on them. Rafael Andriato is swallowed up by the bunch. Great effort from him. He's been out front for a long time. Getting on for 180 kilometres, a little bit less, 74 kilometres. Decent spin out front as Bulgak decides to try and forge on alone for a few metres at least. It's 3 of them up there, but well, it's been a good day out for them. They've done good work for their teams, but they're going to leave it to the bunch behind.
And just after coming through the 2 kilometres to the GPM classement, and you know, it's causing problems here already, as we can see. The breakaway has just totally exploded, and we'll get a view of the rear end of the peloton. I think we will see riders getting into difficulty trying to hold on in peloton.
Yeah, it's a bit of a leg breaker of a climb too, with north of 9%, just south of 10%, and this is very, very arduous indeed. If the legs are starting to feel a little bit rubbery after all the miles out there, if the power to weight ratio isn't really working in your favour, then this is going to be a little bit of a leg breaker. This actually used to be a longer climb, and it used to wind and twist as the brake is swallowed up. Their day is done. They leave it over to the Movistar team to take it up. The last man to be swallowed up will be Mestre of the Euskaltel squad, perhaps appropriately a man from the Basque region and a climber. At the back of the group, though, they're not enjoying it. Mattia Gavazzi is going to be one of the first to exit stage right, and they'll be dropping off in 1s and 2s. The question is, can Mark Cavendish make it? Has he started at the front of the group? Let's see if we can pick him out in his Amiga Pharma-Quickstep jersey. He's one of the and looking very strong indeed in the number 1 Dossard, with for Garmin Sharp's reigning champion rider Hejadal. Bradley Wiggins too looking very, very comfortable. So the pace is not too intense for him. Rigoberto Urán just in front of him as the leading contenders gather around each other towards the front of the group. Pozzovivo for AG2R, the man from the local Basilicata region, moves up on the left-hand side. the diminutive figure, and in huge contrast really to the men from Garmin Sharp, particularly Ryder Hejjedal. He's absolutely huge in comparison with Pozzovivo. Fabio Sabatini of Cannondale, not much enjoying things at the moment.
And Stegemans parked on the left there.
Well, that's not good for Mark Cavendish. If Gert Stegemans, he'd like to have him there for as long as possible.
Yes, and it looks like Cavendish was in the top end of the peloton there. We could see just the overhead shots. He seems to be holding on there in about 25-30 position, I reckon.
Well, that's good for Mark Cavendish. He's got about another kilometre of this pain and suffering to get through. And as I said, this climb used to be longer and slightly shallower, but they dug out of the hillside a wider, straighter road that inevitably meant that it was a steeper one. And right up at the top of the block. No more gears, but Pablo Lastras seems to be pounding out a rhythm that he's able to cope with at the moment. Not too many at the back, though, are able to cope with the power that he's putting down.
Garzelli in difficulty.
Surprise, the oldest man in the race, 39 years of age, Stefano Garzelli, former winner of Giro d'Italia way back in 2000. And well, I say it was a rhythm that he was able to pound out, but not for very long. Pablo Lastras pulls over to the right-hand side, makes sure that he's not going to impede anyone from the bunch, and that's his day done. He's done the work. As Bardiani once more involved. Pirazzi, who's looks like he's targeted the mountain climbers competition. He took the points at the top of the first fourth category ascent of the afternoon. At the climb to Chipoletta after just 37 kilometers of racing. And Pirazzi has a little anxious look over his shoulder. Is he going to be able to hang on out front and take those points? Mark Cavendish is in there. You see him in the Amiga Pharma-Quickstep jersey, number 151, on the right-hand side of the group. Just about hanging on, and I can tell you if he makes it over this hill, as looks increasingly likely, then Mark Cavendish is in great shape for victory this afternoon.
Yes, he's really digging in. We could see his teammate Julian Vermont there just looking about and trying to keep him in contact, but he's very much on the rear end of the peloton at the moment.
Oh, it's looking close, it's looking close. Now we get the shot which indicates that the Commissar's cars are right behind Mark Cavendish as the race goes on out front. Pirazzi has to give it up to Gastar, Ben Gastar, the Luxembourg rider, who's going to look to take the mountains points. This is the scene at the top of this hill, and they're enjoying the sunshine. Hasn't been the case throughout the day. Tom Danielson goes to the front for Garmin Sharp. We see was that Cadel Evans moving up on the left in the points leader's jersey. Gastar looks over his shoulder for a little bit of help from Pirazzi, or is he waiting for the attack from Pirazzi?
Looking difficult for Mark Cavendish. At the moment we see him there in real difficulty, and it's still going on. Not as gradient as much as what we've had a bit earlier, but we can see here he's still fighting just to hold in the wheel, and the teammates are staying close to him. They're going to try and, you know, just get him back into the tail end of the peloton. But we can see there a long line of riders, so it looks like that he is just about in there. A little bit of gap here and there in between riders, but they should all be able to come back together again.
Pirazzi finds something else in going for the climbers' top points. He's going to lead over the top of Monte Scaglioso. It's a fourth category ascent, but I can tell you it's a steep one, short, sharp, and pretty horrific. But Pirazzi, he's going to take the points as Gastar goes south and back towards the group. He's not there yet, though, and he's cracked in a big way, and this gives an indication of just how steep this is. And I'll tell you what, that's difficult for Mark Cavendish. It looks like he's in the group. It's all strung out in one big line, but plenty of cracks appearing. And if they ride it hard over the top, it could be a little bit of a struggle for him to get back in. As we see, taking third place across the line, and important points indeed being taken there by the man who's leading the mountains classification, Giovanni Visconti of the Movistar squad. Cavendish winching himself over the top, and this could well be the moment that he wins or loses this stage. His speed over the last 200 metres on a flat road is not in question, and the Omega Pharma-Quickstep team are gathering around him, encouraging him, shouting at him, trying to get every last bit of energy out of Mark Cavendish, because, well, is he going to make it? Oh, and he's weaving around the road. It just shows how difficult he's finding it. And now, this is the time gap between himself and the front of the group, but, well, you've got to remember that there are just a few seconds dribs between the groups, dribs and drabs, and they will connect up on the descent, so it's not all up for Mark Cavendish. He's a minute behind the lead of the race going over the top. Is it possible, Sean?
Well, he has teammates. We can see there's 3 teammates looking around him. We have, you know, Julian Van Mort is there. We can see Jerome Pinot, though, and there's another teammate also. So that's going to be a big help. But the advantage or the gap he, you know, is grown out to be quite big there. It's going to take a big effort to get back. Depending on what happens in the peloton, if they really push on the front of the peloton, it could be a difficult one for him to get back in there.
That's Gastar who rounds that hairpin behind Perazzi. The group are not far behind. One of the Euskaltel riders has just sprung out the front of it. Interesting, Canal Evans is very much to the fore, and there's plenty of BMC teammates as well for company. And this group, well, it's quite a large one indeed. Peloton is almost compacted. Little groups trying to drag themselves back on. Riders from Vinny Fantini and Sky rounding that hairpin, getting back on the pedals as quickly as possible. Now, where is Mark Cavendish? Is this the Cavendish group? If this is the Cavendish group, then he has a great chance of getting back in. It's going to be tough, but, well, he's got the advantage and the aid of 3 Omega Pharma-Quickstep riders. The 4th in line of this group, and all the cars behind as they head across the top of Monte Scaglioso. Mark Cavendish is still in contention, but he's got lots and lots of work to do. Let's get a sight of Gastar. This is the Benedictine Abbey of St. Michael Archangel. Norman Castle up there as well. Monte Scaglioso is very important from a tourism point of view in this region. The confirmation of the mountains points going to Perazzi, head of Gastar. And Visconti taking another point to Copperfasten, his position at the head of the mountains classification. He'll hold that jersey for at least another couple of days. So Gastar is out front. I'm not sure, we haven't seen Perazzi in recent shots, so whether he went back behind and Gastar took it up. And Gastar up front has been joined by Robert Vresser. And these two working well, and that is the front of the race as we understand it. So Perazzi, having taken the mountains points, satisfied and content with that, he's slotted back into the group and left it up to Gastar, who had bigger fish to fry. Radio Shack looked to get involved. Is this Jesse Sargent problems? Cobo. Oh, Cobo's gone down, not for the first time in this race either. Another crash for Juan Jose Cobo, the winner of the Vuelta a couple of seasons ago. It's been a disastrous Giro d'Italia for him so far. He's been out the back on the first 2 mountain stages. He's had a couple of crashes, even crashed warming up for the team time trial. So it's not working out for Cobo. He's got to pick up a wheel and he's got to wait forlornly. Now, is this is the group of the leaders, or is that the Mark Cavendish group? No, it has to be the leaders, because Cadell Evans there in 4th and Visconti, Scarponi for Lampre in 2nd position. Blanco have gone to the front to drill it in a big way. Robert Hessink, of course, is their leader overall. These the 2 riders up front who have managed to steal a march on the peloton. What's their advantage? Well, it's just seconds at the moment, but that's not stopping Gastar from piling on the power. And he's got Vresser for company for the Euskaltel team. Now, wouldn't it be nice to know exactly where Mark Cavendish is at the moment? I believe that he's probably quite close to getting back on. Vresser is Slovenian, 32 years of age now. First year with Euskaltel, of course, which has opened up its its roster to riders from outside of Spain, outside the Basque region. Took the GC in Plastovic in Poland a couple of years ago. But this would be a much bigger scalp indeed, as Bardiani looked to get involved to chase it down. And AG2R also looked to try and marshal that. That's Sylvain Georges, who was so involved yesterday in the attacks. And Georges is marshalling those two riders from Bardiani, because his man, Gastauer, up front is doing a great job. Wouldn't it be nice to know exactly what the gap is between these two riders up front from Euskaltel and AG2R Le Mondial and the bunch behind? And indeed, wouldn't it be nice to know exactly whether Mark Cavendish has managed to make it in there? And of course he has the job as well of having to get back up through the group, and then they come to that final drag to the finish. So there's a lot of work for Mark Cavendish to be certainly involved, as indeed are plenty of the other sprinters. We didn't see any sign of any of the other significant sprinters going out the back there.
No, and of course Mark Cavendish would be the one who they would be focusing on, and they certainly were doing that, and we could see that he had to put in a real big fight to just hold on in there to get over and limit his losses, and it looks like that there's a possibility of him to get back in. This is the difficult section here, because it kicks up again, and unless you're very close to getting in here, well then you know, you lose another bit of time here on the group. Doesn't look like for the moment he's back in here, but difficult to see. He could be at the moving up a little bit further in the peloton, and the peloton is not really going at a real fast pace at the moment, so that is the opportunity for him to get back into the main peloton.
Yeah, Danny Pate for Sky Pro Cycling, able to lift his hands off the bars, put something in his back pocket, and so clearly it's relatively relaxed at the moment. 12 seconds between our two leaders out front and the Maglia Rosa group, which has been driven along by the Bardiani Valvole riders, because Sasha Modolo is a fast finisher for them, and they believe that he can get involved in the finish at Matera in just under 15 kilometers time. So Mark Cavendish not visible at the back of the group, not visible at the front of the group. Likelihood is that if he has managed to get back in, that he's working his way back up front as quickly as possible. And it's not particularly narrow road, but the group is spread across the road, so it's not that easy to move up in this situation.
No, it's not easy to move up, but again, you know, the road is good surface here. We can see it looks like that. You know, the team is on the front. Bardiani, they are pushing on a little bit, and that's up the pace again. They're getting organised there, and it doesn't look like that the Mark Cavendish has made it in there. I cannot see a group of Omega Pharma riders together, so looks like they're still just chasing and trying to make it into the front.
Oh, and problems for Sky. Is that Bradley Wiggins that said Danny Pate has stopped? No, Zuran has managed to get a wheel from Danny Pate. Danny Pate was at the back of the group, and I think, well, he looked pretty relaxed about things, so it's a good place to have a rider at that point. It worked out well, and Rigoberto Urán gets away without any difficulty. Presumably he'll be able to get back into this group, but he's only got 13.4 kilometers to do it, so it will be a bit of a chase, and energy expended for the Colombian Rigoberto Urán, who currently sits second overall.
Yes, and we did see a group just going by as Rigoberto Urán was getting back on his bike, and that was the group of Mark Cavendish, so that is good for them also, because Urán is going to really push on here, and if there's anybody from Sky there in that group of Cavendish, they will try and, you know, up the pace and try and make it back into the main peloton of favourites.
10 seconds for the riders out front. Gastar of the AG2R Le Mondial squad, and Vrecher of the Euskaltel team, as Bardiani continue to drive it. Sasha Modolo is their go-to man. Enrico Bertiglina as well, of course, is super fast. We know that from yesterday, and he might just fancy pulling one over the leaders, the big favourites, once more, as the attack comes from Lotto-Belisol on the left-hand side. Is that Lars Bak? Looks like the big man Lars Bak driving for glory, trying to see can he get across to these two riders up front. And he's managed to get an advantage over the three Bardiani riders that are working hard behind. AG2R keeping a watching brief as their man Gastauer up front has a little look over his shoulder and realises that very shortly the 2 will become 3, and this is well, important 2 strong legs that are about to arrive here. Might just give these 2 riders up front a bit of useful impetus, and that's yeah, it is back. Lars back that joins them.
An important one to join the 2-man breakaway, because back, of course, super strong in the final, and you know, a real powerhouse, and he will, you know, be a big help to the 2 already out in front.
He's now 33 years of age, an old stager. He's been around riding as a pro since 2003 with the Lotto team for the past couple of seasons. But it doesn't look as if it's going to work out, because Bardiani have continued to work steadily. Or is the camera foreshortening the gap? And this the scene for the riders in the 5th stage of the Giro d'Italia, this impossibly beautiful region, as they head up towards Matera, famous for these sassi, these extraordinary buildings that are carved into the stone hillsides, almost cave-like dwellings. And this an extraordinary setting for a wonderful finish to stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia. So the question is, can Mark Cavendish get back involved, and what will the other sprinters' teams be doing? Interesting, Sean, that Bardiani have taken responsibility for closing it down. One of the smallest, least financially able teams in the peloton, probably the smallest budget in this race, and they're certainly animating the race this year.
They certainly are, and with a stage victory yesterday with Battagling, you know, one of the wildcard teams in the race. You know, the morale is good in the team when you get a win like that for a team of that standing. Well, you know, it's a magnificent start to the Giro, and they're certainly, you know, just taking control of things here. So they feel with Battagling again, probably because he seems to be in really good shape. Yesterday, I was surprised that he did get to the finish, because you know, a very difficult run in yesterday, where today at that little bit easier, so they are taking control, and it looks like, you know, they have the confidence is growing within the team.
Lars Bak finished 2nd in Tour of Poland a couple of years, well, back in 2008. Took the prologue on that occasion. He won a stage of the Giro d'Italia, of course, 1 year ago, so a man who knows and loves this race. And Lars Bak giving himself a racer's chance of getting involved in the shake-up at the end of this stage as well. Took victory ahead of Sandy Carzar's solo victory into Sestri Levante 12 months ago. AG Tour doing their best to interrupt the chase. Androni have decided to pick it up. Androni had 2nd place yesterday, courtesy of Fabio Fellini, and would dearly love to come up with a stage success. Inside the final 10 kilometres. And none of the other serious sprinter outfits have decided to get involved yet. Katusha moving towards the front. They've got the leader Luca Paolini. Not obviously in evidence there. Cadel Evans, though, is visible on the left-hand side in his red points leader's jersey for the BMC team. And moving up on the left-hand side for the Vini Fantini squad, Danilo De Luca. Now, see, can we pick out any Amiga Pharma-Quicksteps? There's one rider involved there, but you would imagine if Mark Cavendish is in there, there'd be at least 3 or 4.
No, it doesn't look like he's made it back in there. I cannot see a number of the Omega Pharma-Quicksteps. I can see Degenkolb, he's certainly in there. He's in about 20th position, so he's made it over. And the interesting one is the other sprinters, how many of them are in there. Orica-GreenEdge, Matty Gost, I haven't seen him there. But a very big bunch of riders here at the moment. We must have, what, 60 riders in this leading group.
First 3 riders up front now with just 6 seconds advantage, so the Andronis are whittling away that advantage for the leading 3, so it doesn't look as if they're going to be able to hang out up front. Is this the Cavendish group? It looks like a group that's touring towards the finish. No sign of a couple of Argos-Shimano. Durbridge has done great work today. Is that
Stigmans? No. I think that's a group which is further back, because Stigmans was dropped quite early on the climb, long before we got pictures of Matt Cavendish. So this is a group that's further back the road.
So of much less significance. Meanwhile, up front, Gastar pounds out a rhythm. Vrecher seems, while they're on their way back, Bardiani again on the front. And no sign as we look behind at those cars and motorbikes behind this group of around about 60 riders. No sign of a group coming up. The scene in Matera, the rains have abated. They've washed clean the roads, which have dried out. So the scene is set for the completion of this stage on good, fast roads. But will it be riders out front of the main group, or will it be sprinters coming through to take the victory? And one of the Sky team, is it? No, one of the Garmin Sharp riders, I think, could well have come to grief there. He's had some sort of mechanical problem. Looked like he might have been trying to put a chain on. Rider from Androni coming across. So riders coming across in dribs and drabs. Gastara looks like he's still full of fight.
Danielson.
Tom Danielson is the man for Garmin Sharp, who gets a wheel and gets back going, and will pick up riders who, as far as they're concerned, they're out of contention. Will Danielson battle on to try and get back in? There's plenty of other riders that feel they can. Is that Iran who's still trying to get back on it? Seems powerful, stocky figure. Meanwhile, Mega Pharma-Quickstep at the front. Oh, that's Cavendish, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Cavendish. Oh no, it's all up for Mark Cavendish. He's not going to take victory on stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia. What a fight. He did his level best, there's no doubt about it. He was working so hard over the top of that hill, but as he looks around, he's not getting any help, and it's all up for Mark Cavendish. So it's going to be someone else.
And Matty Goss also in there in that group with Cavendish, just in the wheel of Mark Cavendish.
So the work from Bardiani has paid dividends. Androni as well. The teams that were invited, looks like Gastar, I think, that could well have come back from the break. Now it's one of the AG2ers. Gastar is still up front. Vrecher's there as well. They've been joined by Vini Fantini, Bardiani, Androni. The invitation teams from Italy really getting involved in this stage 5 of the Tour of Italy. And it's strung out in one big long line, and riders really struggling to maintain position and fighting to hang on to the wheel. It's a long, tough drag up towards Matera. It flattens out a little bit, coming closer to the end, but well, they have a hell of a lot of work to do before they get to there. And there's Gastar. It was Gastar that was caught and dropped, so he's a teammate up front. Meanwhile, Christian Canese goes south, and Tom Danielson is in the cars and fighting hard to get back into contention. Great to see.
Yes, and Danielson, of course, in the general classification, he's very much up there. He's at 42 seconds in the overall, and you know, he's there. Nobody really talking about him, and he is looking in good shape at the moment, because getting through to this point, just at little loss time-wise, he seems to be in good shape.
Matteo Rabatini it is up front for Vini Fantini. In question that Tom Danielson would have GC ambitions, that he'd be given a free ride by the Garmin Sharp squad?
Well, I think he's another card they will play. They will just see what way he's going as we get into the more difficult mountain stages, and you know, play that card also, because with Ryder Hagedal you never know what can happen, and he has proved in the past and looked very promising a number of years ago, and you know, has been up there in big tours in quite a good general classification at the end of the race.
Well, Vini Fantini have Matteo Rabatini up front, doing his level best to stay out front. It isn't going to work out for him. They have got other cards to play. Danilo De Luca is the second of those two riders, is he? It's Sant'Ambrogio, actually, their GC contender. De Luca's in there, number 224. Oscar Gatto there as well, so obviously that team is very motivated and working well at the moment. Fabio Fellini, who we saw finish second yesterday, fighting to hang on. And that pink balloon will not last too long in there. Those riders know just to ride over it, not to try and ride around it. All up for Rabatini, great effort, but it all comes to naught. And now we hit the little bit of a phony war, as the riders start to look around each other and see where the next attack is going to come from. Team Saxo-Tinkoff go to the front. Could it be that Daniele Banati, who is a very fast finisher indeed, and is there likely to go-to man in sprint conditions? And that balloon could have caused a little bit of drama in there. But luckily, no harm done. 45 seconds to the Cavendish group, and it looked by their body language as if they'd accepted their fate, Sean.
Yes, I think they did put in a big effort to try to make it back into the end of the peloton, but the moment it started to go uphill again, I think they were all feeling very tired from that big chase from the top of the climb, and they just had decided there was no way they were going to make it to the end, tail end of the peloton.
So riders touring in, beginning their recovery for tomorrow's 6th stage. Still 6 kilometres to ride, but not going to be involved in the shake-up. Who's it going to be? Cannondale Elia Viviani would be their go-to sprinter. Has he managed to make it in here? Up at the front for Lampre. Setting the rhythm is that was Nimic again at the front. Meanwhile, Cadel Evans is staying out of trouble, staying in the wheels. And it's been a fast stage today, 43.7 kilometres an hour. That's about 4 kilometres an hour faster than yesterday's stage. Gives you an indication, I suppose, of wind conditions and also of the just how hard they've been racing today. Steve Morabito on the front as the attacks come once more from AG Tour La Mondiale. Hubert Dupont gets a few yards advantage over the peloton.
And we're coming to the section now where it does ease off a bit. With the around the 5 kilometres to go, it does go down a little bit, and it does up a little bit again. But there's quite a few sections in it where there's a bit of recovery time. So for a rider on his own, he could pull out an advantage. But there's too many riders here with teammates in it, and they're going to really push on the end. So for a lone one to go all the way here, it wouldn't very, very difficult to do.
So the rides are drying out fast, not entirely dry, and it's a little bit technical within the last kilometre. There's a couple of little twists and turns that are going to ask a lot of the riders' bike handling abilities. Hubert Dupont pushing hard and racing for glory around this hairpin. Dupont 9 minutes and 39 seconds in arrears, has a 7-second advantage on this stage. 69th position overall, so not a contender overall, not a worry in terms of Luca Paolini's Maglia Rosa. You see him there on the wheel of one of the riders from Sky, one of the riders from Astana. Is that Nibali? Nibali might be a little bit further back, but we do see Robert Hessink well to the fore, sitting in 3rd position, and right on his wheel is Cadel Evans. Presumably for these riders, the main consideration is to try and stay out of trouble, stay away from any grief, or are they perhaps thinking about the possibility of stealing a march, maybe a few bonus seconds?
Well, when you look at the finish, it does in the final kilometre, it does start to just kick up a little bit all the way to the line. So Cadel Evans certainly he's thinking of staying out of danger. First of all, we did see him 2 days ago where he was very much up in the sprint, or yesterday it was, and he's going to try and maybe I think first thing is to stay out of danger and then see what happens. But there's a lot of very good sprinters here at the moment, I think, and it's going to be difficult for Evans to get into the top 3 to get some time bonification on this one.
Well, Hubert Dupont, now 32 years of age, did manage 3rd on a stage of the Giro a couple of years ago. Stage to Grossglockner in Austria. Likes the hills, perhaps isn't quite got the hill that he needs here to try and do something about it. It's BMC that have taken responsibility for setting the pace. As we see Pelozzotti moving up on the left-hand side and onto the wheel of the BMC train. Franco Pellizotti, the Italian national champion, came back from a little enforced layoff last year and surprised everyone with victory in his national road race championship. Meanwhile, DuPont has been closed down. He's not aware of it yet. He just has a few bike lengths advantage, but with 3.4 kilometers to go, it's not going to be enough. And they're winding their way through the streets of Matera. Cadell Evans and co desperate to try and stay up front and out of trouble, because plenty of scope for difficulty within these last few kilometers. Winding, twisting roads, a couple of 90-degree turns in the last kilometer. Long straight with 2 kilometers to go leads into 90-degree left, and 90-degree left just after that before the finishing straight. Bardiani and Cannondale to the fore as well. Has Viviani managed to make it in? Viviani for the Cannondale team would be their go-to man. A wonderful sprinter and a man with eyes, I think, on the mantle of greatest sprinter of the world that Mark Cavendish has had. He's going to have to do an awful lot to get to that status at this point. Mark Cavendish not involved at this point in the stage. Bardiani, of course, also up there in their green jerseys, very similar to Cannondale's jerseys. And Bardiani have a couple of cards to play in the shape of Sasha Modolo and Enrico Battaglin. And they go to the front and take it up for BMC, hand it over to the sprinters teams. Here come Orica-GreenEdge. Well, we know Matt Goss is no longer involved. Brett Lancaster it is that tries to tag his way onto the group, and this isn't as well organised a sprint as perhaps you might see on a pan-flat stage. There's riders in here that perhaps believe that this is a rare opportunity for victory in a sprint finish. This is the first of these left-handers, and he's gone down right at the front of the group. Is it one of the Argos riders who's taken them down? John Degenkolb, of course, is their go-to man in the sprint through into the final kilometre, and one of the Bardiani riders has got a gap, and a significant gap indeed it is for is it Canola? Marco Canola. Riders down all over the place. This Garmin Sharp involved, and what an opportunity has been presented to Marco Canola. Can he manage to hang on? Who's this behind? Is it Degenkolb of Argos-Shimano? He has a little look over his shoulder. He's into the final bend, heading for the line. Canola desperately trying to survive. He was thinking more in terms of leading out, and now he's been offered an opportunity to go for victory in stage 5 of Giro d'Italia. He's inside the last 400 metres. It is, he's dying on his wheels. Will he be able to hang on? Canola looks under his armpit again and believes, he hopes and prays that he's going to be able to last to the line. It's not going to happen for him though. It's Argos-Shimano that's going to take it up. And sprinting for the line, is this Degenkolb, or is it Koen de Kurt that is going to take victory in stage 5 of Giro d'Italia? And it's a long drag up to the line, but it's victory for Argos-Shimano. Hands in the air, a wonderful victory. Katusha in second place. And that was one heck of a long sprint, and dejection for Canola that he's not able to take the victory on this occasion. Oh, and recriminations back, well, not so much recriminations, but riders picking themselves up off the floor.
That was Degenkolb.
Yeah, that's Degenkolb that's gone down. So it, I wonder, was it Koen de Kurt? We'll get confirmation very shortly, but Degenkolb it was that was in second position, and he was the lead rider, and there's lots of chaos, and clearly that man is in serious pain at the moment, so huge disappointment for him. His team have won the race, but let's get a replay of Degenkolb in second position. Just gets it wrong and clips one of the Colombian riders, and he jumped straight back up. And this the moment as Canola is chased down. No, it is Degenkolb that's taken the victory. Degenkolb it is, that takes the victory for Argos-Shimano. So who was that went down? His lead-out man, clearly in agony on the ground, as much perhaps at having gone down on that last corner. Degenkolb with plenty of time to look around himself. Gets his arms in the air. Many people, he's the bookie's favourite for success. John Degenkolb is confirmed as the winner of Stage 5 of Giro d'Italia 2013. Huge delight for Degenkolb as he's congratulated by Thomas Demusau. And let's get a replay. Oh, and riders, and that was just quite simply, the minute one went down, they all hit the brakes, riders left and right. And a huge number of riders. Nasser Bouhanni was delayed, was one of the riders that went down from Française de Jeu. And Degenkolb had a huge advantage at the conclusion.
Chaos on that final corner, and we could see you know, a lot of riders getting going down, but a lot of riders getting slowed up as well. But of course inside the 3 kilometre zone, nobody will lose time in the general classification, but really treacherous final corner.
Treacherous conditions, and they, well, what is it about Italian roads? I mean, it just seems as if the roads of the Giro d'Italia, once they get wet, it can be really, really difficult for the riders to stay upright. There's confirmation of the staged results of Stage 5. John Degenkolb takes the victory ahead of Angel Vicioso. Paul Martin's third for the Blanco team. Good result for them. Haynau is fourth for Sky. Trentin gets up for Amiga Pharma-Quickstep, and no sign of Cavendish. Pantano, good result for the Colombian squad. Os of BMC well to the fore, as was Coquelin of the Orica-GreenEdge squad, Greg Bowl and Tanel Tangert of Astana. So Degenkolb takes the victory and takes the plaudits. It's another flat stage for the riders tomorrow as we survey the scene over Matera. This beautiful town in Basilicata. World famous, as I say, for its extraordinary caves, the Sassi. Recognised by UNESCO in 1993 as a World Heritage Site. And they just went down like skittles, really, didn't they? You'd have to say that not everyone was reacting to what had happened up front. It may just have been there was a complete and utter absence of grip. And we see Visconti in the mountains jersey also held up there and went down in that crash.
Take us to that last kilometre. I thought it was you that come down initially. Was that your teammate?
Can you speak a little bit louder, please?
I said the last kilometre. Take us through the last kilometre. What happened in that corner at the finish? Was that your teammate that came down?
Yeah, my lead-out man crashed down with. I think he was behind some other guys, and he crashed with these guys, and there was one guy in front still from Bardiani, and I looked back, and then was just Viviani behind me, and yeah, then I went full gas to make it to the finish and to catch this guy from Bardiani back, and in the end I couldn't see anything. I was so empty, and it was a great job of my team today. We controlled the whole race and we had the confidence and took the responsibility, and it's a great day for Argos-Shimano.
You must have felt it was a stage that's really suited you, given that you put your team on the front straight away.
I think it was really, really on the limit. It was really hard in the end, and I would loved it to if it would be not that hard, but I had to suffer a lot to come to the finish today.
Okay, great, well done. Get yourself to the podium.
Heartiest congratulations to John Degenkolb, who takes his first Giro d'Italia stage victory. 24-year-old German, adding to his Grand Tour stage successes. So now Degenkolb can add a stage in the Giro to the 5-stage victories he took in the Vuelta a España 1 year ago. As we get a replay, he just got on the power a bit early. Looked like he went for the pedals and Just wasn't the grip there to match his eagerness. Here comes the Mark Cavendish group, trailing forlornly in. It wasn't to be Mark Cavendish's day, but he has a great opportunity tomorrow. As I say, it's 169 kilometers from Mola de Bari to Margherita di Savoia. No mountains, no classified mountains tomorrow. It's an absolute billiard table finish, and 2 laps of finishing circuit. You'd say it's pretty much guaranteed sprint finish opportunity for Mark Cavendish. And he's chewing at his right cheek, a little bit of a wry look. Disappointment for Mark Cavendish, but great performance by John Degenkolb, who came into this stage as the bookies' favourite and certainly delivered. Dry conditions for the riders as they headed out from Cosenza this morning. Luca Paolini hangs on to his maglia rosa, and the organisers at the finishing line in Matera relieved indeed that at least they got a finish. So stage 5 will be repeated tonight. Highlights at midnight on Eurosport. Full highlights of this fascinating stage. And Luca Paolini hangs on to the leader's jersey. Bradley Wiggins manages to negotiate another tough day in the saddle without too much difficulty for the leading contenders. He wasn't too visible towards the end, Bradley Wiggins, but one presumes he was in there.
Yes, I think everybody was in there. There was a very big group, of course, 50 plus riders in that group, and I don't think there was any major difficulty finding the big favourites to get into problems today. So the only thing, the final crash, and of course inside the 3 kilometres to go, well then everybody is credited at the same time.
And a great day for Argos-Shimano, because Lucy Garner took victory in China today to match John Degenkolb's victory in Italy. So watch out for stage 6 live on Eurosport tomorrow at 2:15 Central European time. It's 1:15 if you're in GMT time. Mola de Bari to Margherita di Savoia, as I say, 169 kilometres with 2 laps of a finishing circuit. It's made up for the gallopers, an opportunity for Mark Cavendish to make amends. And I don't think there'll be any question today, but all those riders delayed behind will get the same time as the winner, John Degenkolb. And crash coming well within the final 3 kilometres, and it was a very compact peloton at that point. So Sean, a pretty interesting day. John Degenkolb delivers, but it wasn't the straightforward finish that he might have preferred.
No, not as straightforward, and of course when the Argos-Shimano rider went down, it looked very much like Degenkolb, so I was a bit confused there in that final run into the line, and but yes, Degenkolb, really strong in the end, just finishing very, very powerful as he always can.
So Luca Paolini hangs on to his lead ahead of Hainaut now. So Uran has dropped out of contention. Hainaut it is that takes it up for Sky in second place, 25 seconds in a rear. Bennett Inchausti in third, Nibali and the other overall contenders with the same gap between themselves and the leader. And there's a beautiful shot of these Sassi, these extraordinary buildings carved into the stone hillside that have made this town world famous, and helped it to be awarded a World Heritage Site status by UNESCO in 1993. And Paolini was delayed. The race leader, you can see, he managed to avoid going down, but no chance to get involved in the shake-up for stage honours, but as I say, there's no penalty in terms of time. So John Degenkolb will very shortly make his first visit to stage winner's podium at the Giro d'Italia. Proud moment for the 24-year-old German, who, as I said, has now taken 5 stages in the Vuelta a España, and he can now add to that a stage win in the Giro d'Italia. GC winner in Tour of Picardy last year. Won a couple of stages of Dauphiné a couple of seasons ago. By far his biggest success of the season. It's been a patchy old start to him, really, for a sprinter. He hasn't, this is, by my reckoning, his first victory of the season, so I think perhaps that face could be described as a picture of relief. So much pressure on the sprinters to deliver. The expectation is so much higher.
Well, of course, these are the days in the Tour, the 4th days are the ones where you try and get the sprinters to get a victory. When the opportunity presents itself, as it did today for Argos-Shimano, they really, went out and did a lot of riding on the front of the bunch to pull back that breakaway.
So John Degenkolb it is that accepts the plaudits of the crowd, who've waited patiently through the thunderstorms earlier on to witness an exciting finale to stage 5, and the race winner that many people expected, but perhaps not in exactly the style. No problems for John Degenkolb with tasting the champagne. It's a rare enough occasion this year, so he's going to enjoy it, and perhaps there'll be a little glass of champagne at dinner tonight for the Argos-Shimano riders, maybe just the one. So Rigoberto Urán has dropped out of the top 3 positions overall. He's dropped out of the top 10. Let's see, did we see Bradley Wiggins listed in the top 10 there? I'd like to see it again. Some questions about whether he has also lost out. We'll wait for confirmation of the overall standings to see has Bradley Wiggins managed to hang on. No doubt about who is leading this race overall, though, for another day. It is Luca Paolini of the Katusha squad. Good solid performance, good work done by his team all afternoon. And he had no difficulty staying with the leading contenders over the climb of Monte Scaglioso. So Luca Paolini. Oh, and that's interesting. They're now that caption indicated that Urán was in second place, 17 seconds down. So that's a change. So I wonder if Urán didn't sneak back on in the closing stages. Luca Paolini, proud moments for him at 36 years of age in his first Giro d'Italia and enjoying another day in the Maglia Rosa. Katusha squad lacking Burrito Rodriguez in this race this year, but still plenty for them to celebrate. So victory goes to John Degenkolb on stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia. But it's Luca Paolini that hangs on to the pink jersey for another day of racing. This is the scene at Matera before the rains came. And relief for Degenkolb, who broke the heart of so many Italians, broke the hearts of all of the Bardiani team as well. Canola looked as if he'd got a great opportunity, managed to make it through that corner as so few did. of the runners at the front, and Canola was presented with a great opportunity, but just didn't have the legs to last out front. Bardiani very active, as indeed were the Vinnie Fantinis. The race, the stage controlled for so long by Orica-GreenEdge. Cadell Evans and Bradley Wiggins just trying to hide out of the wind for as long as they could all day long. Okay, that's it for stage 5. As I say, we're looking forward to stage 6 tomorrow. It'll be live again on Eurosport. Please do join us for that. From myself and Sean, it's goodbye for now.
The Giro